absent in Europe, and AJ is absent tonight, out sick. Everyone else is here and present. Item number 1 tonight's adoption of the agenda. We get a motion to
I'd
adopt.
like to add something to the agenda.
Oh,
So,
wait, okay.
Okay, we got,
Move
to amend the agenda.
First we adopt and then we amend.
Okay.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Linda. Second by Timmy. And
Now,
now I heard there's a motion to amend.
motion to
I
amend,
would like to include the consideration of the board for John Gingrich for the ACC,
how do you spell his last name?
GINGRICH.
GRICH.
So we're gonna have to add that then as 8H.
Yep.
And I think Rob had a amendment also.
yes,
We might as well approve them both.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, go ahead, Rob.
we would, any committee would like the board to consider adding Georgine Coast and Don Gentis to the NV committee.
We can add that as HI. AI.
8-I. 8-I.
I'd like to move to adopt the amended agenda.
1 second. Hang on now. Linda.
All those-
Keith, all in favor of the adopted agenda? Right. Can you see Lori? I can't.
Yes, we're hands up.
Okay, that's unanimous. The amended agenda has been adopted. Okay, moving on, so when we get down to items 8H and HI, we'll call on each one of you respectively, and you can have your appointment, okay? All right, moving on to item number 2, announcements. Do we have any announcements tonight, other than time? All right, timing,
Okay, I got a laundry list for you.
okay?
This Saturday, November 16th, there's going to be an open house in the newly redone Area Z, the remodeled maintenance facility. It will be from 10 until noon. And we're encouraging people to come out, see the new facility. Mike Brock will be there to answer any questions and give you a tour. And we're also encouraging all board members, if you can make it, to please come out for that. That is this Saturday, November 16th from 10 until noon. Next item I have, it's just over a week until our Sudden Valley Holiday Market. Come down to the Dance Barn next Saturday, November 23rd, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. to find some great crafts for yourself or for Christmas presents. We have over 30 local craft vendors, and I do believe the majority of them are crafters from Sudden Valley. So come and support your neighbors, and you can find some great gifts. The next item that I have is on December 7th. It's also a Saturday. Sudden Valley will be hosting our 2nd annual tree lighting. We will start the festivities at 3:45 with a golf cart parade with a prize for the best decorated cart. Don't worry if you don't have a golf cart. Golf has arranged that you can rent a cart from them for $20. Come down a little bit early if you want to decorate it. We'll have to have it back before it gets dark. But after the parade, we're gonna head over to the Dance Barn. And at 5 o'clock, we'll have the tree lighting. Then we're gonna go inside. We'll have pictures with the Grinch and the Candy Cane twins. As well, we're gonna do cookie decorating. We'll have carolers. I know there's probably gonna be hot chocolate and cider. I don't know, Joanne, there's gonna be some other little treats for the.
Yes.
So perfect, we'll have that. Actually, I have another one that I totally forgot about. Don't forget on our next board meeting on December 12th, we're gonna be starting early, and we're gonna be doing a little meet and greet with our new GM, Michael Bennett. So come down an hour before the meeting and come and meet our new GM. And last but not least, I think this is the last one. On December 14th, it's time for breakfast with Santa at El Agave again. That will be from 9 until 11:30. Bring the family for pictures with Santa, crafts for the kids, and a delicious free breakfast. And we're hoping that you will bring some donations for toys for tots. That would be gratefully accepted. Oh, yeah, no, I did have one more. Sorry, I knew there was something else. We have, in our paper, we have a kids use, and which is really nice. They have a picture and they have a little puzzle of some sort. I'm hoping to get some of our families involved. We have, apparently there's a little guy who walks around Lake Louise and cleans up some of that area. I was telling Joanne, there's a family around us that's their 5th generation in Sudden Valley with 4 generations still living here. Rather than, I mean, this is lovely, but I'd love to see some kids' pictures, some of their accomplishments. What are they doing? So they're doing some volunteer work. Are they in a special club that they want highlighted? Get the team. So I would love for you guys to send me information and pictures. You can send it to me personally at the BOD Vanderfolder at suttonvalley.com. And hopefully we'll have some great pictures to replace the cartoons that we have. And that's it.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Any other announcements?
The Agave
Great.
toys, what's that day? You get this.
That's the 14th.
14th. Thank you.
So 2 Saturdays in a row, we have some Christmas events going on. And have some fun around here.
Yes.
Any other announcements? All right. Hearing none, we're gonna move on now to item number 3, property owner comments. We have 15 minutes total, 3 minutes for property owner. Do we have any property owner tonight, Spencer?
Anybody online?
Anybody online with their hands up?
There is one, just Jane D.
Hand up, you can bring her in if you'd like. Or if she'd like.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't see you for a minute. I'm just seeing my name on my screen, so. I just wanted to make my opinion known about the wet slip rates. The rule that requires that wet slip users also keep a trailer on site is ridiculous and should be removed. I'll bet if you asked around to your boating friends, as I did, they will say they've never been at a marina that required wet slip owners to lease a dry slip. What possible reason could Sudden Valley have for keeping this rule? It accomplishes nothing good for our members as a whole. Instead, it provides a monetary savings to an exclusive an exclusive group of wet slip users, while at the same time blocking the ability of other members to lease a dry slip. If this fee structure is implemented, 87 wet slip users will receive a total discount to the tune of $26,000 in 2025, while continuing to occupy valuable dry slips with their empty trailers. In 2020 and 2021, wet slip users got a discount of $20,880 each year. In 2022 and 23, it was $23,000 and $26,000, and in 2024, it was nearly $31,000. Over just those 5 years, wet slip users kept just under $122,000 in their pockets that could have been money paid to SVCA if those combo slips had been fairly charged. I understand that if a wet slip user doesn't have a dry slip, then they would need to move their trailer back and forth from off-site storage when it occasionally needs to be used. But I'd ask that you contrast that with the situation for many other boat owners in Sudden Valley who are waiting for a dry slip. They have to drive back and forth with their trailered boats every single time they want to head out on the lake. They also pay for off-site storage or risk getting a fine if they park their boat on their lot. There are only 2 options that should be considered, in my opinion. The fairest and smartest option is to remove this rule and let wet slip owners choose whether or not to lease a dry slip at the full rate. They can decide if it's worth the money. The other is to automatically add the full rate for a dry slip to the full rate for a wet slip. Continuing to provide huge discounts to the select few members that are eligible is irresponsible and unfair. And I also wanted to reiterate my point about the lots for sale, which is just that SVCA seems to be pursuing a more aggressive foreclosure process moving forward. And I think that it would be very important to get community input to formulate a broad process for how to handle these vacant lots in the future, rather than pushing through the sales without asking our residents how they feel about it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Anybody else, Spencer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. All right, moving on, we're gonna move on to item number 4. We have a consent agenda. We have items 4A and 4B to be the meeting minutes from October 4th, 2024, and the meeting minutes from October 24th, 2024. Do you have any changes or corrections to the minutes? Not, can I hear a motion?
I'd like to get a motion to have the minutes of October 4th, 2024, and the minutes of October 24th, 2024 approved as submitted.
Second,
Tony, all in favor? That's unanimous.
I'm gonna abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rick, I didn't see you. I gotta look that way.
Cause I wasn't there.
Okay.
Yeah, please, I have a question.
Okay.
All right, so we have Rick abstaining. And obviously Tom abstaining, he wasn't here, is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And the rest.
And I have to abstain from the October 4th, I wasn't here.
Well,
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Rob?
Will you be creating minutes from the organization meeting? Out on November 2nd?
yes,
Just wanted to, because we did for,
Yeah, I'm still thinking
I'm
about it,
just not-
secretary already answered.
they'll be submitted in December.
Gotcha, okay.
Go ahead, Ray.
So. Say somebody's not here in the board meeting. But all the stuff gets posted, you can read the minutes. So you do have access, so I don't understand why would we abstain from not accepting the minutes if they're available to review?
I thought
Could have provided that.
I read it online this morning, but it seems like. But no, we might have a printout here, but
Reviewing the minutes is a record of what happened at the meeting. The YouTube videos haven't been posted or hadn't been posted at the time, so I couldn't review the discussion that went on. I think it's awkward to, I mean, I don't have an objection to them, I just don't feel like I have full information to make an informed decision about the minutes.
But you did. We had minutes before this meeting,
Yeah,
To
no,
review.
that's not the
you can
issue.
accept or not accept. Or,
I get what Rick's saying.
The issue is I can't confirm what's written in the minutes because I didn't participate in the meeting. I don't have a dispute, but I can't affirm my participation, lack of participation.
Yes, go ahead, Joanne.
So Rick, the videos are usually posted immediately. So which meeting specifically did you not see? So I can look it up.
Both of them.
Spencer, October 4th and October 24th, are they out there on YouTube?
When I went on, they should be able to double check on the website. They weren't. Usually they're highlighted in red. When they're posted.
No, they're on YouTube. Adding the link to the page on the website itself is hit or miss, but they're always on our YouTube channel.
Okay, so.
And that's a good piece of and that's why I asked. Yeah, so if any directors or any members of the community are looking for the videos of any committee meeting or a board meeting, they can find those at the Sudden Valley YouTube channel. And the easiest way to get there is to go to our website and scroll down, and on the left, there's that link to the YouTube channel. You click that, and then within the Sudden Valley YouTube channel, there are separate channels for the different committees and the board. So that's the best way to find those things.
Okay,
So there, yeah,
I've been too lazy, I guess, to go down that path. I just think clicking on
I've been on YouTube and actually seen some of them uploaded. I got even the night of the meeting, excuse me.
that's exactly right. We live stream on YouTube, the board meeting, so they're immediately available. But that's a great piece of information for y'all to have in the community. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, they're there.
Okay, so we have the motion on the table right now to for the 4A meeting minutes for October 4th, 2024. They've been approved by majority. Rick's abstained, Tom's abstained, Keith abstained. Meeting minutes for October 24th, 2024. Any motion for approval on those? Are there any comments, questions on those? For the 24th.
If you want to do it separate, I move to approve the minutes from October 24th.
It's timing, I'll second that. Is there any questions or problems with the 2024 meeting minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval of the October 24th? Okay, it's approved the same. I didn't realize it was the same, so it's gonna be Rick. I was at that one, it'd be Rick and Tom, and it's still approved by majority. Rick and Tom abstaining. Got that, Linda?
I do.
Okay. Moving on to item number 5, financial reports, September financials, capital reserves, Joel.
To the directors, you can follow along in your packet, or it will be online here on the screen, if that's easier.
I can see it.
Okay, so I'm gonna quickly go over the September 2024 year-to-date financial statements. I'll start out with the balance sheet, which is what you're looking at, which I want to start out with. And the good thing about this is there's nothing out of the ordinary. We've already talked about that deferred library lease line item actually a couple months ago. So a couple board meetings ago for me. So everything else looks fine. So we'll just go ahead and skip ahead to the income statement, which is really the most. This is really the meat and potatoes of the operating budget. Based on what's coming in. And you can see right here, I'll just go ahead and start off with the collection rate right here, which is 97.8% year to date through September, which is a great collection rate. As you know, we budgeted for in 2024, we budgeted for a 95% collection rate, which is the same amount that we used for the 2025. For 2024, we budgeted 95%, and 2025 we still budgeted 95% as well. So you can see we're coming in at 97.8% collection rate. And I said these numbers before, but I'll just go ahead and say it again. Since we budgeted for 95% for what it means to come in over budget in a good way, the collection rate is for every 1% we come in over budget, over that 95%. Operations will take an additional 26,688, serve an additional 13,520, roads 13,906. Mailboxes $251. And I've already calculated, okay, so September 2023 year to date, 97.5%. So September 2024, we're 97.8%. So we're doing better than last year. Last year was a great year. Already calculated the October collection rate, but year to date collection rate, month ending October, it ticked up even to 98%. In October of 2023 is 97.9%. And keep in mind, at the end of December of 2023, we finished that year at 97.9%. So basically, long story short, if we were to finish the year at 98% collection rate, then that means operations would take an additional $80,000 more than what was budgeted. And the total of surf roads mailboxes combined would take an additional $83,000, which is obviously that's $7 finances. Now you can see the right here, the net income, operating net income, $642,222 year to date, obviously through September of 2024. Last year, this time, year to date through September 2023, we were at $590,964 in operating income. And keep in mind, we finished out the year, December 2023, also at a operating income of $228,870. So that kind of gives you an idea of the trajectory we're on, which, you know, hopefully this holds nicely through the end of the year. You can see that So we're $348,071 over budget in terms of better than budget, I should say, for net income, operating net income. Last year, we were $346,783 better than budget, so we're pretty close in terms of being better than budget. Obviously, this number has a lot to do with fine tuning what we believe is going to happen with past performance as well. And I also like, I'll I put out that number, the basically expense to revenue ratio, which is just like, for example, September 2024 expense to revenue ratio, 83.6%. And all that means is for every $1 of revenues, we had 83.6 cents of expenses. And September 2023 is 83.8%, so pretty close because the operating net income, they're fairly close year over year, but it improved a little since in this year over last year because of the higher net operating net. Now, the next page here, the capital reserve. The reserve cash balance and activity sheet, this is really handy. We look at this all the time in terms of this is what's really used. The numbers that really feed into capital budgeting and so on and so forth. But you can see for SERP, and I'll just quickly repeat this up. We'll click on SERP right now. It was net available cash at the beginning of the year. So at the end of 12/31/2023, which is obviously same January 1, 2024, $3,627,018. Then if I went back to the balance sheet, you can see there's that number again for SERP, the ending 2023 number. And then keep in mind that $3,218,000 year to date through September for SERP. There's that number again, $3,218,258. And then you'll see the various cash sources coming in. So like, for example, dues received, interest on SERP accounts, bank accounts, some sale of assets. There's that $105,600 transferred in. And another, there's that $40,000 that was transferred in after that library lease as well. And then basically this amount right here, $1,579,701. This is all the checks that we cut or transfers, like for loan payments and SERP project payments, approved projects. And then down here, just looking at outlook, this would be the projected dues at a 95% collection rate, $321,004. Obviously, we're doing better than that, which is good. So far we would anticipate that to be higher. Then some SERP loan payments, the big numbers. These are the remaining SERP loan payments for the year that are approved to come out of the SERP account. And here's the big number, the most interesting number, the obligated expenses holding that $1,156,911. And let me pull up, and this is also in your agenda packet. So there's, so we're looking at the SERP projects open in 2024. This is everything that the board has approved that are open. Obviously, it's marked closed. You can see that obviously the board, the approval dates on April 25th board meeting. That's when the board basically shut down that project. That's why it's marked closed and no more spending projected on this. But so obviously this green column A, board approved, or the header that's made on this column. This is the actual board approved amount for any of these projects. The blue header total invoice. These are all the checks cut so far for these projects, and this kind of beige column you can see. Call it. These are the funds obligated. So meaning if we go to the last one, number 2 Golf Bridge repair, the last thing approved on this on September 26th, you'll see the board approved $25,640. Obviously, we haven't spent anything on that in September, so that's why we still have obligated $25,460. But the bottom line with this, all these obligated amounts added up, except for a few of these yellow ones, you'll see just these small dollar amounts. These are where the project is ultimately got over budget. So reaching the facilities, total building remodel, HVAC, but they're small piddling amounts, like $17, $12, and these will be reclassed as an operating expense when we close out the year. But it's not very much in terms of the overage. And then obviously we have the adjusted balance, which takes into account these 3 small amounts. So $1,156,911 for that. And then that's the number that is right here, 1,156,900 per serve. And then roads is the exact same drill, the same pattern going on with roads. So if I go back to the roads sheet, and this is in your agenda package as well. So the road, you can see all the open roads projects here as well. And total open road projects is 2024 CDC, all of this stuff factoring in 443,910. And here's that amount, 443,910. We'll quickly talk about UDR real fast. So it says you're obligated for UDR 50,693. And that's the last page of this open projects report. And here you can see all the obligated things for UDR and that 2024 county manager funding thing. So if you can see with the dates here, I'll go ahead and highlight these dates. So this thing is giving away the May 23rd, 2024. This is when this thing was approved, 45,000. It's closed, total invoice of that. And the board also voted at the August 8th board meeting to go ahead and shut down that and de-obligate it from UDR. That's why it says county funds obligated nothing, and we also had no invoice for that. And then really the only other thing is the hazardous tree removal, which is getting that there in terms of spending this thing out. The GM search amount right here, and obviously that legal expenses for the past due accounts here as well. But that makes up that 50,693, which is right here. That's basically in a nutshell how to read that. So bottom line is, we quickly go back to search just for a second. You'll see there's this net usable cash 2.3 million right here, but then we have this board recommended carryover balance of 600, which is just basically saying we don't want to fall below 600,000. So net usable cash 1,704,000. That's what we're projecting that the board did not approve any other projects. That's about what it would be coming in at the end of the year, 1.7 million. Yeah, in relation to last year, at the end of September 2023, it's about 1.69 million, so it's pretty close where it was last year. But this is all a factor of what the board approves, and this can change. And this stuff, factors into all of the 10-year capital planning as well from year to year. Roads, you'll see that also has a 500,000 board recommended carryover balance. So after that, 1,446,538 last year with 1.45 million, so it's pretty close again to year-over-year September. The big thing, mailbox right here, obviously we haven't had any expenditures out of that, so 151,634. Last year it was 126,000. So this is just all dues getting in there and interest, and no expenditures coming out of it. And then UDR is obviously the thing that the board includes projects from as well. 257,131 last year, 293,271, and I'll just quickly remind everyone again, so that UDR undesignated reserve fund. This is the fund where all of prior year operation dues go into. So so anyone who has not paid their, let's just make it real simple. Let's say this amount was 0, and then on January 1, 2025, there's this one person who owed, we'll just say like a couple $100 in operating dues for 2023. If they pay that in January 2025. Then that amount will go into this UDR fund, the operating portion of it. The surf roads and mailboxes, that goes to those actual accounts. But then obviously this account builds up and the board can approve to spend money out of this, just the same as they do with surf roads and mailboxes. Now this sheet, this current month sheet, so just keep in mind, this is only for the month of September. I'll go to the next one. It's the exact same thing, but this is year to date. This will be more interesting. And the good thing is this is the last sheet. This is the last. And I just we'll talk about that. We'll keep them with this. But this year to date, so basically this is showing you when I said we had an operating income of $642,222 back on the consolidated sheet, like that income statement. There's that amount here again. And now this is showing you what department is responsible for that. Basically, you could see terms of net income loss, how that amount came up. And down here is the actual dues section, the operating dues. And the line items that I always call out, couple of favorite ones is golf right here. So we'll go into the fact that this. Okay, so for golf, you can see actual revenue through year to date, January through September 30, 2024, 1,293,742. Year last year at the end of September 2023, year to date was 1,334,265. So it's last year was, keep in mind that was a great year for golf, best year they've ever had. And the year before that was just best year until last year. But so right now, as we speak, at the end of September, revenue is down $40,523. In terms of expenses for golf, which is this actual, so this is basically all the payroll expenses, payroll and benefits right here is payroll taxes, $660,086. Then all the other expenses, $628 combined make up $971,714. The expenses combined last year at the end of September 2023. $909,559. So their expenses are also up $62,155 year over year, but we expect that with especially payroll costs going up and just costs in general going up. So the bottom line for golf is they have a net income, operating net income of $322,028. Last year it was $426,706, but obviously the reasoning of that, which I already highlighted, is revenue's down $40,523, expenses are up $62,155. The net of those make up that difference. Joanne, did you October, just all.
Yes, they slightly exceeded last year's revenue in October, so they need the difference.
Yeah. And exceeded that pretty much.
Yeah.
So as Joanne said, Kevin has told Joanne that the October revenue numbers, they've exceeded it from last year's October month. So they've made up some of that ground, that shortfall, that $40,523.
It's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a big, all happened this year.
Those guys, I love those guys out there golfing in the rain. It's amazing.
Excuse me.
This also talking about Marina. We hit on Marina here real fast. So you can see Marina actual revenue, $248,110. At the end of September 2023 was $188,675. So Marina, obviously, they've had an increase in Marina fees. That pulled in an additional $59,435 year to date over last year at the end of September 2023. Their net income $236,459 through September. Last year is $179,156. So the net income is also up by $57,503. But I would say that's pretty much the highlights of the September financial statements. If anyone had any questions about these statements.
Thank you, Joel. Anyone have any questions?
Oh, sure.
Maybe a
Ray?
later date.
On the arenas that you just touched on that, with the, big increase, with that increased money that's supposed to be set aside for the new dock in 5 years, is that going into a fund?
Well, actually, so that goes to operations, but that brings up a question, so I'll point this out again on the. So now we're looking back at that reserve cash balance sheet, and then you'll see the CERF column right here. So you see this line right here. So the board approved this. So that's that $105,600 that the board voted to move from last year's surplus in this. Basically to make up for what that last budget said, that is going to be. So now it's like front loaded, so it's.
It looks like I read this afternoon that 2025 dock fee schedules are actually going down.
No. That is not.
That is well, right. Well, that'd be-
When is
Depends.
price would be?
Well, there's. when we get to that point in the agenda, we can dive into it more deeply, Tom.
Okay.
But the fees, the individual fees are rising. It's been proposed that in 2025, we will not allow non-members to rent marina slips. And because non-members have much higher rates than members do, that will cause our overall marina revenues to reduce somewhat.
Ms. Britt?
So, just to be clear, the excess, funds that are, generated in golf and marina go into the operating fund right now.
That's right, yeah.
Unless, can the board change, where that money goes or not?
Well, sure, like once a year, it's basically wrapped up. Then any surplus that's there, the board could decide to either transfer to SURF or UDR.
So right now, the way it is, any excess funds that are generated by marina fees or golf fees are helping to offset dues.
That's correct. Yeah.
Increases, otherwise we have to raise our dues.
Yeah,
Right, so,
yeah. Ultimately, in the long run.
yes, hopefully, yeah, so I think. Right now, we're thinking about long-term or
Yeah.
midterm, I guess, in terms of the dock replacement and how are we gonna fund that?
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
So. In the 2024 budget. It was designated that $105,600. Generated by an increase, a proposed. But not approved increase to the marina fees. Would be moved to SURF. The board in our bylaws is given the ability to set use fees. And use fees are paid into operating funds. There is no mechanism to create a special holding account for a portion of some fee to then be transferred to capital. There is no accommodation for that in our structure. So at the beginning of the year, when I proposed marina fees that were smaller than the proposed increases. I suggested to the board that they could vote to move some of the cash that was sitting in operations because of the surplus from the year before into SURF in advance of collecting any of the fees. And as the board has the authority to transfer funds as they desire, that got around the fact of use fees not being able to be set aside and or designated to go into capital. That's simply not how we fund capital. So we accomplished the exact intent of funding for capital reserves in a way that was accommodated by our bylaws and our structure. Okay. In the 2025 budget, we provide for the funding of the dock replacement in 2029 through the usual mechanisms. And all this confusion arises from the fact that we have these two separate sets of financials. We have operating financials and then we have capital. For people who manage a business, it's kind of weird to see it that way because you obviously expect to see depreciation and capital expenditures coming out of the total budget for your organization, but we don't do it that way. So in 2025 budget, you don't see a special line item that says this is coming from the pockets of the people renting in the marina, but the funding is still there for the replacement of the docks. It's just absorbed in the whole, it follows the traditional way of budgeting that Sudden Valley Holdings has followed. So hopefully that clears it up. It is a very confusing topic. Sure.
Thank you, John. Any additional questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. We're gonna move on to item number 6, the GM report for October.
Keith, can I?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Tom.
In 2021, I went through orientation.
Yes.
And I've got the 2021 book. Are there amendments to that book?
Yeah, there's gonna be a new binder coming out. We're gonna have an orientation.
Okay.
You should see hopefully a binder, a new director binder in December.
Okay.
I still need to work that going on that,
I'm gonna lose all my tabs now.
All right, Joanne?
Thank you. I'd like to start by talking about hazardous trees. In March of this year, the board of directors approved $55,000 from UDR to be used to pay for the removal of hazardous trees. The memo that was provided to the board at that time noted that SVCA has already spent, had already spent the budgeted amount in this category and was on track to spend significantly more. At this time, I can confirm that my earlier projections were accurate.
There you go.
SVCA has spent $127,318 on hazard tree removals year to date. The chart below summarizes spending in this category by month. And in case any of you compare this chart to the September financials, this chart reflects spends from October and November that have already been, checks that have already been paid, but the financial reports for those months are not yet available. So again, this summary includes those invoices that have been paid. I am aware of approximately $10,000 in additional costs coming from tree removals that were completed just last week. So if you do the math in your head, that gets us up to $137,319. In the past, the last few months of the year had the highest number of tree removals. Given what we have spent so far in our past history of tree issues at this time of the year, I believe that SVCA could spend as much as $160,000 on tree removals this year. I am not requesting additional funds at this time because it will be more efficient to transfer funds in January if you want to do that. And because you'll know the real total. But the board should be aware that this continues to be an area of concern for the association. I'd like to touch next on drainage improvements. A quick note about those improvements. SVCA has spent a considerable amount of money over the past 2 years to improve stormwater drainage system, which includes catch basins, culverts, and ditches. By comparing the number of maintenance requests related to drainage issues that were received this year versus last year, we can gauge whether our investment is having an impact. Between January through November of 2023, we had 118 maintenance requests that were related to drainage issues, so that's a lot. This year, during that same period, we only received 42. A significant improvement. And considering that in 2024, we have had 51 inches of rainfall year to date. That's over 4 feet of rain.
Jeez. How?
Just year to date, so through November. Compared to 34 inches last year, only 3 feet. So we've had more than an additional foot of rain. And the year's not over.
Not even close.
It's easy to see the drainage is significantly better now, right? With all that water, it's being handled way better. Not perfectly, but much better than it was. So investment in drainage has delivered value to the association.
So it's not money down the drain.
There you go. That was a dad joke. I'd like to talk a little bit about non-assessment revenue. Non-assessment revenue is revenue that we collect that isn't dues or some special assessment. So we get it as a result of providing goods or services to members of the community or not members of the community, just people who come and play golf or do something else. A review of the September financial statements shows that it had stronger year-to-date net income when compared both to budget and to 2023. At the end of September 2024, year-to-date net income is $642,222, as Joel pointed out, which is significantly higher than both budget at $167,471 and last year, which was $590,964. While a portion of this increase can be attributed to higher than budgeted assessment revenue, it is also due to both significant increases in non-assessment revenue and well-controlled expenses that are under budget year to date, 1.9% lower than budget on the expense line.
Nice job.
Yeah, good job, Joanne.
Yeah, good job. I'll give you that.
Just in case you weren't noticing. But it's important, I think, to look at the individual sources of non-assessment revenue, because everyone except for Area Z was higher than budgeted. And Area Z rental income, which is the RV storage area, that revenue has been affected by the closure of that facility for a couple of weeks in September for renovation. And when we reached out to all the people who had RVs and trailers in there, several of them said, oh yeah, I forgot about it. I don't really want that anymore. I'm gonna cancel. And then we had the closure of the facility for a month, and now we're reaching out to people and getting new contracts. So we will be full in there. But it's actually pretty amazing that every source of revenue has increased except for that one. Revenue from pools, other income, which primarily comes from ACC fines, and new home construction fees saw the largest increases this year. So those are subsets of non-assessment revenue. What we take in from pools, ACC fines, and the fees that we collect for new home construction. So those three categories delivered $173,217 more than was expected in the budget. Across all non-assessment revenue categories, we've taken in $328,472 more than was budgeted. Now, to put this into perspective, the 2025 budget includes a proposed dues increase of 7%. And that 7% increase in dues results in additional assessment revenue equaling $360,922. Okay, so in the additional non-assessment revenue that we collected this year, we have almost equaled the amount that the dues increase will contribute.
Wow.
Now, of course, the year-to-date non-assessment revenue surplus contributes almost as much to the bottom line as that dues increase that's planned for next year. Which means that a continued focus on developing non-assessment revenue streams can have a significant effect on the amount of assessment revenue that is needed to support SBCA activities. In other words, the more golf, marina, ACC fees we bring in, the more money we don't have to collect from dues increases.
Yeah.
And you know, when I started here, I was told that don't worry about that, you know, golf contributes, we get a little bit from the marina, but mostly it's about dues, and that's very true. Dues revenue, assessment revenue is the primary source of income. But the other sources of revenue can have a significant effect and help to offset the need for further increases to dues. Moving ahead to the capital projects update. The tennis court resurfacing is complete, courts were reopened in August. The electrical work is scheduled to be completed in November. That's to allow us to install an additional camera and card reader to help us protect those new tennis courts in the rec corridor.
So presently, people are using the tennis court, even though it's not been good weather. They call the recreation area. And then they have to wait for a recreation person to come up and open the gate.
Yeah, the front desk opens it when they're requested to. So the people who want to play tennis show up at the front desk, and then the front desk attendant will go and open the court for them.
Okay, and then when they leave that court, it automatically locks behind them.
No, the front desk staff has a routine where they go out and they check it to make, because, you know, people are done and they leave, they don't come back and say you can lock the courts now. But we check it routinely to make sure that it's secured, and we have not seen continued wheel damage. It was people going with bicycles and skateboards and things, and it scuffs up that surface, makes it not so good for rapid sport.
And those same courts, right, access to pickleball as well?
Yes. They are lined to play either tennis or pickleball.
See your wheelchair.
Next capital project update, the turf care building design and permitting, the design is complete and we've submitted for a permit, we're just waiting for Whatcom County to issue it to us. On the adult center HVAC and hot water heater replacement, HVAC was installed, and we're waiting for the final inspections to be completed. A replacement of the water heaters has not yet been scheduled, we're simply having to wait on the county again for them to issue a permit. Clubhouse HVAC design is complete and the permit application was submitted as planned in October. We're now waiting for the permit. Bridge design and permitting, design is underway and we expect to have the permit ready to submit in December. Important announcement regarding the Barney siding project. The board elected to put that project on hold until a structural report could be completed. The on-site work for that report was completed in September, and now we're scheduled to receive the full report the week before Thanksgiving. So we can distribute that for review, and at the December 12th board meeting, we will have Quinn Hanks from Kingworks on hand to present the results of that report, as well as Tyler Andrews to answer questions about the implications of the report for the Barney siding project. So we're very much looking forward to that. Completed projects are, as you can read there, and the remainder of my report detail the individual activities of each of our operating departments. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Joanne?
I just have a quick
Yeah,
question,
Linda?
please. Do we know if and when, and I know it's been raining cats and dogs, they're gonna get out and be able to do the sweeping and cleaning of the roads? There are some roads up in gate 5 that I think even Daniel can tell you, there's places where it's inches deep of muck. And if it
That's a great
freezes,
question. Yeah, we don't want it to freeze. The street sweeping is scheduled for next week. And we don't know when they will be where, but they will, they'll be cleaning all the streets and all the gates next week. And that's a good thing, because they are very messy.
thank you very much.
And just as a reminder for residents, people who may be watching this after the fact, we do street sweeping twice a year, and this is something that's only been done for the last couple of years. And it's an important activity because it keeps a huge amount of vegetation out of the ditches.
Yeah.
And that's those ditches and the repairs to those ditches that have been so costly for the association, but useful, as we saw. We've dramatically improved the drainage throughout the association, but we don't want to now ruin it by putting all kinds of sticks and leaves and dirt and mud back into those ditches. So the street sweeping is an expensive but very useful activity for us. And it's gonna happen next week.
All right. That's awesome.
Saturday, I cleaned my driveway in our cul-de-sac. And by Monday, it's full again.
Yeah.
So fall is not over. I'm just wondering if it's premature when it's street sweeping.
It is a fine balance, Tom, because as Linda pointed out, if we let it freeze, we're not gonna get it off the street.
I'm supposed to start freezing next week.
Well, it may have a gate 5, but the experience of our maintenance facilities manager. I rely on him to make these decisions, and it's interesting because we use the leaf blowers to clean the asphalt around the clubhouse frequently, but you never know it.
Yeah.
Because about 10 minutes after you've done it, you can drive back in there and it seems like all the particles have been generated.
It's
So,
an invitation for the window blow.
yeah, whenever we clean, it's just an ongoing battle, so. But noted.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 7, continuing business. 7A is ratification of the executive action for the transition contract. So just so everyone knows, Joanne's still here, so obviously the transition contract has been signed.
We need a motion.
Go ahead.
Move that the board ratify the action of the executive committee to execute a GM transition contract with Joanne Jensen.
I'll second. All in favor?
Thank you, vote for that.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Linda. Okay, moving on to 7B, approval request, sale of lots, SVCA lots, Joanne?
You. The purpose of this memo is to request board approval of proposed actions to appropriately disposition lots received as a result of foreclosure actions. As background, SVCA ownership of 3 developed lots in 2020 as a result of foreclosure proceedings against the prior owner. The lot addresses, appraised values, and 2024 taxes are shown in this table. This time in the memo, I included a map that shows each lot and the status of the surrounding properties. These maps were taken from the Whatcom County Auditor's Property Search functionality. And I think they provide a lot of information for discussion. These 3 lots are the only saleable individual building lots that SVCA owns. We own many lots, but they're placed into green space, so we can't sell them. They're not saleable. Because these lots became the property of SVCA in partial payment of uncollected assessments, I believe that every effort should be made to realize their value. And when I wrote this memo, I did not have this information, but I went back and worked with the county to determine what was owed on each of the 3 properties prior to the foreclosure. And each of the 3 properties owed in excess of $14,000 in back dues. Okay, so the total owed approaches $44,000.
In back dues?
Yeah.
Wow. They didn't pay anything.
Yeah, I think that's a fair conclusion. On October 24th, the board directed me to outline steps to be taken towards the sale of these lots. This memo outlines the proposed actions. So I describe a process, a general process that would be followed with the sale of any lot should it come into the possession of SVCA. The first step would be to obtain valuations from a real estate agent that has expertise in this area. Next, to offer the property to neighbors at the established value and to allow a reasonable amount of time, and I've said perhaps a month is appropriate, for those neighbors to think about it and get back to us if they're interested. Following the announcement to the immediate neighbors, an announcement of the availability of property could be placed in Sudden Valley Views so that the entire membership was aware that a lot was available. After we don't get, or if we didn't get any response from neighbors and after the 1 month had passed, the next step would be to offer property to a list of builders in good standing and to give them a 2-week response time to think about it and get back to us. If after that time period no one has purchased the lot, the next step would be to list the property with a real estate agent, and I'm proposing that we would leave it be listed for 18 months. If it hadn't sold in that time, I think the appropriate action would be to take it off the market and then reevaluate it after some time had elapsed, perhaps a couple of years. So for each of the properties, I've outlined a list of steps that follows that general outline. For 3 Louisview Drive, the market value was established at $40,000. The first step would be to offer it to residents living on Louisview Drive between numbers 1 and 22. Also to offer it to 1 and 3 Rosebud and 10 and 3 Sweet Clover. And that's where these maps come into play. If you look at map number 1, that relates to 3 Louisview. And you can see that it's outlined in the heavy pink line. And you can see that it's surrounded by developed lots, so that would be an ideal lot to have an additional house put on.
It's a big lot too.
It's a double lot, yeah, so it would be an attractive location and a property, I think. But I think it's not realistic to offer that lot to people who are not close to it, because you know, it will be in the Sudden Valley Views anyway, so every member could see it and think about it. But in terms of sending a direct letter to the owners, those would be the specific neighbors that I think we should include in the distribution. Again, we would, after those neighbors had gotten a look at it, we would put it in the views, then offer it to builders. If it didn't sell, list it with Agent Greg Paul. Who was, if you recall, the last time we talked about this, he was the only real estate agent to be interested in handling these lot sales and then reevaluate it. So anyway, that's 3 Louise View. The outlook for 33 Louise View Drive is described on map number 2. Now, last time when we discussed this, and Greg Paul in his description said that it was surrounded by green space. That's not really the case if you look at the map. So 33 Louise View is a double or perhaps even a triple lot. If you see it, it's shaped kind of like a hockey stick. You guys see it on the map there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that there's several lots that are developed that are directly adjacent to it. And there's 2 different keyways that could be utilized to gain access to the property. It's not just the really steep one that comes off of Louise View, but if you look down on Bramble, you can see that there's also a keyway directly through Bramble Way that gets to that lot. So I think that's a little bit more desirable, especially given the fact that that green space is there on both sides. So if you're there, it's like you've got 6 lots essentially surrounding your home. It's not out there in the wilderness. You've got developed lots next to you, but you also have a lot of forest and land around your house. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, particularly with this lot, when I was looking at it this afternoon. There's also the park right there, and I would need to look at a larger topographical map. But what I saw was a possible escape route in case of emergency. That could be a drivable lot, you know, you can escape through the park, the keyways, get to that lot, possibly have better access to key roads. So it is something I would like to look at further.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what would be gained, but
Well, that's why I say I'd have to look at a much larger map.
so map number 3 talks about 63 Louise View Drive. And if you recall, the last time we discussed this, it is an extremely steep lot. However, it is also not completely surrounded by undeveloped lots. It's next to a consolidated lot that is developed. And across the street from sort of catty corner a lot, and then there's one behind it, 10 Loganberry, that's developed. Of all 3 parcels, this is the most challenging to build on. And I can see why, given the geology of this area, that you might not want to place it for sale. It might be better to leave it undeveloped. But I wanted to underscore for you and for the community what that really means. If you choose to put one or any of these lots into green space, there's a clear advantage to the environment. Dense housing and lots of traffic on our roads is clearly deleterious to the environmental health of our area. However, every single lot in Sun Valley that was ever platted was deemed buildable and is zoned for building. Human beings have to live somewhere. So if you choose to put one of these lots into green space, while it's clear that the environment is advantaged, given the benefit from not having it be developed, the association not only gives up the value of the lot itself by not selling it, but also foregoes any future dues that would be collected from that lot. So that adds up pretty quick, and it should not be done lightly. It may be appropriate to do it, but that needs to be considered as well. There's a third consideration, which is that our forest, the forest that we live in here, is aging. And it is a regrowth forest. The trees that first come back in a regrowth are often alders, and the alder has a shorter lifespan than many of the other evergreen trees. Alder, of course, is a deciduous tree. A lot of the alders in in the lots around Sudden Valley are falling because they are dead. It's the end of their lifespan. And that has contributed to the huge, it's not like we only take down alders, but when a tree falls, it not only affects that tree, it disrupts the roots of surrounding trees, it can damage trees when it falls. And as we talked about earlier, the association is spending huge amounts of money on removing hazardous trees. And even with being very, very efficient about responding to people who identify potential hazard trees. Even so, there were several houses that were damaged by trees that had not been identified as hazardous over the last stormy and windy weekends that we've had. So this continuing problem of trees will only be increased if you put more lots into green space, because of course, the association would own it and have the obligation to maintain that lot and respond to any hazardous trees that could, could harm people or property. Now, in the case of 63 Louise View Drive, that's not a consideration. None of the trees on that lot would hit anything. But on the other two lots, it absolutely is a consideration because of the development that is adjacent to those lots. So in short, I would request that the board consider each of the properties separately and approve or revise the suggested activities for moving consider for 333 and 63 Louise View Drive with the goal of selling the properties. And as an assurance, because it's not specified here in the process that I outlined, if we received an offer to purchase, that offer would be brought back and would have to be approved by the board of directors before any action could be taken.
So how would there be an agent along the wrong?
Not if we sell it through the first couple of steps.
Okay. Also on 33, I think that we wouldn't be gaining any advantage as far as dangerous trees, because that would then be a property, and we'd have two $7 properties next to it that would then have trees that could hurt the new property. So it seems like it would be a
wash.
Yeah. So I don't think that's a consideration. I haven't really looked at 3 for that. 3 seems like the most likely to be sold and most useful for us.
Let's make a motion on it, and then we'll get discussion going, and then we'll make a decision.
Well, would we make a motion on all 3 of them?
Yeah.
Was it a process?
Yeah.
Or
We still can discuss individually.
We'll discuss after we make the motion, yeah. So we're making the motion right now, move that the board of directors approve the proposed activities for lots 3, 33, and 63 Louise View Drive with the goal of selling the properties with the understanding that any offers received on the properties will be brought back to the board for direction before any action is taken.
Second,
Okay, any questions? Now we can start discussion.
I have a question.
Well, Daniel, were you done or?
Probably have to cut it off.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Well, I was thinking with these foreclosed properties, we Sudden Valley, the association now owns them. When at the point when we took possession, do we owe the back taxes that weren't paid for them? And would it, I guess, with kind of the second part of that question is if there are back taxes, do they get paid at the point of sale by us, or what's going on with the taxes on those?
Well, so the taxes are paid on those things, and basically the taxes come into play as soon as they become ours at that point.
So we paid the taxes once we took
Yeah,
possession.
that's right.
Okay. And as we hold them in that 18-month period, we would still be paying taxes until the point that it's sold.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fairly small amount though.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2 lots are about 200, and then 63 Louise View, the smaller lot, it's so steep, it's like 100. I'm sorry, not a month annually.
I have one question. Any idea how much money we spent to get these lots back into our possession? I mean, I know we got the back dues, we never collected roughly $14,000 on each lot. How much extra in legal fees do you suppose we might have spent getting these lots back?
I do not have that information.
I was just curious.
Foreclosure takes such a long time. That it's probable that the process was started in 2018 or at the very latest, 2019.
So, no, it's like 2018. That'd be really.
Yeah, so,
So we got money on that as well.
yeah, so there's quite a bit of sort of costs associated with each of these lots. That we hope to offset by selling them. But perhaps it's not appropriate for them.
Linda, did you have Ray? No?
Well, I just that took 5 years for it to go through the process. Before we got. it
To
back.
get here, yeah.
It took 2 years, but
2
we've
years.
sat with them, we've owned them since
2018.
2020.
Okay,
So now it's 2024
right.
and. Part of my responsibility is to look at assets and. Consider whether, bring it to the attention of the board to either realize them or continue to hold them. So we paid the taxes for 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Who over here?
I think Daniel,
I just wanted to, I think it's very important that we don't consider all of them as. If we look at these properties, some of them probably aren't worth selling, or we shouldn't sell. I'm sure some have more benefits than others, so we could look at each one individually. I definitely think the one at 62, I climbed it. The other day.
brave man.
My thighs were sore. It's literally 45 degrees. So I can't even have it built on it, and I'm not sure it should be built on. It's directly under our water tower at gate 5. So that's legal too. So.
Well, it's your streets.
Well, there's a street there, thank goodness, and a cul-de-sac area that's,
Added
And it's also right in gate 28 where that road is not as well maintained as the rest of.
repeated.
Yeah. So that property is right there, so.
Yep.
Did a lot of them there.
That's lot
Right below
63.
you, there's that giant park.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's all park area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had, no one else to have.
I'm on a turn.
You've got the floor.
I've been patient. So I have 2 questions.
Okay.
If we first offer these lots to adjacent owners, how do we determine the price? It's not gonna be the same as if Greg Paul's selling them as dirt. If we're gonna offer them, I would assume to owners, you're gonna offer it at a lower price. And also, is that gonna be conditioned upon them consolidating the lot rather than acquiring it to then develop it separately?
I think my proposal is that if they're purchasing it just as a separate lot, that it would be at the market value.
Mhm.
But if they purchase it with the requirement that it be added to their lot or placed into green space, whichever, because our consolidation process requires that it be adjacent, touching,
Mhm.
contiguous. So if a neighbor just down the street a little bit wanted to preserve that space, they could place it into green space. There's a little bit of cost associated with that, but then their taxes go to nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we could offer a discount and I would, hope to get direction from you all.
That would come back to the board, yeah.
They can always make an offer.
Exactly.
It's,
Is
I
that
don't know.
worth 20%? Is that worth
Right.
50%? I don't know, you guys,
You good?
That's what I was curious about, because I would assume it would be a much lower price than those that. Once we would hire a realtor to handle them, it would be at a much lower price if they were going to combine it or whatever.
Okay, so what I can amend the first bullet of the general process to say, or the second bullet. To offer property to neighbors at the established value. Or at a discount. If consolidated or placed into green space.
Okay, that works for me.
Yeah.
It's a good call, thank you.
You had a second question, Linda?
No, those were my 2.
That was it, and then was,
I think it was
I think Tom first and then we'll go to.
Yeah, but it's just an extension of Joanne's comment with the rain this year, being a foot over last year. And long range forecast is it's gonna be a very wet winter. I've been here 10 years and all the firs and cedars in my backyard around my deck are dropping fir cones like hail. I mean, they're dropping 1 to 2 to 3. Every 2 to 3 seconds. I mean, they sound like golf balls. They're driving the cat nuts. And I couldn't figure out. This happened about every other third day. I'm just covered with these fresh, they look like you could eat them. So I think our forest could be preparing for a real nice renewal in the next couple of years. There's a lot of seed going down.
You need to know that is what, to say what Tom does, I have a lot of green space in my yard that's just covered with mulch and stuff. I have tons of little pines coming up all over my yard, all over my yard.
This spring. There'll be a lot of.
Daniel or Rick?
Yeah, no, just to clarify, Joanne, so the bullet points that you have, each property are going to be undertaken sequentially, not.
Correct,
Yeah,
not simultaneously.
yes, yeah.
So then, okay,
Just
Rob,
one
yeah.
one last quick comment. I really like Joanne's process that she's laid out. I think it gives the property owners adjacent a chance to purchase the property. It gives people within the community a chance. It's very transparent and open, and it flows out well. The last thing is with Greg, like he sells a lot of undeveloped land in Sun Valley. So the numbers that he's suggested to you, Joanne, I think are very, they're accurate.
Yeah, if there's no one else, I did have one other thing. The only other thing I was looking at and curious what you guys think is offer the property to listed builders in good standing, 2 weeks response time. I was thinking that's too quick, 14 days. I wonder if we should make that 30 days.
You wanna give them a month as well?
I would think that's fair. They have a little due diligence to do, you know, and so.
Maybe they need to get their subs out and take a look at it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's.
Where you're gonna see those.
See what.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, what about giving the residents a little bit more time, because that's pretty quick.
They would not give them 30 days?
Well, yeah, we said one.
They have 30 days.
That's.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I live longer than one, I think.
30 days for an expression of interest, not to
Yeah.
close on it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, 31st day. You're out, yeah, 30 days to let us know, yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out here, and maybe I'm wrong, who have had their homes for a long time, myself included. We used to have 2 lovely lots below her that were empty for a long time. And I think that some of us appreciate the fact that now these lots are being built on. And it's like, there's only a few of them, but people will say, somebody's building on that lot. And it's like, yes, indeed, it's an empty lot and owned privately. It's
So
just, it can be a real shocker, folks.
357, right, Joel, are undeveloped lots. I think that's the number from the budget. So while that's not a huge number compared to the total lots, which is 3,125, 3,120. Of that, 3,120, of that, 357 are undeveloped. So there's still 350 houses that could be built here.
Yep.
10%.
And if people want to preserve the area immediately around their home, I can see that would be very attractive as the intention. So, that's, something to be considered.
Yeah, like about 367.
67.
I think 65, I think somebody just consolidated, if I look at the,
Yeah,
that's, I'm just looking from August report.
So in your bullet, did we put anything in there or offer the property to the neighbors? That's not to develop at a future date.
Well, what I amended that at Lena's suggestion.
Okay, perfect. I
Offer
just
it,
make the note.
if they just wanna buy it and then build on it,
There
I
you
guess,
go, okay.
right? It would be full market value.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay,
But if they are gonna consolidate it or place it into green space, they would be offered a discount.
okay, so I'm gonna just put in here, Joanne, maybe, because I didn't make it.
I got a note.
Okay, all right, so now we're gonna go back to the motion that's already been made by me and seconded by Linda. I'm gonna read it again just so we understand it, and then we'll make a vote on it. Move that the board of directors approve the proposed activities for lots 3, 33, and 63 Louisview Drive with the goal of selling the properties, with the understanding that any offers received on the properties will be brought back to the board for direction before any action is taken. Also, keep in mind that we made amendments to the bullets for our notes today. We'll now move to vote on that. All in favor? All in favor? We're voting on this now with the changes. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's your hand up?
I guess. She's still awake?
Lori's
I
raising
am
her.
awake.
Right. That's 7-4. What are you? Opposed?
No,
Oh, you're for it.
Yeah, we're
Daniel?
missing two people though, right?
Oh, Daniel doesn't vote. What are we missing?
Stu and,
Okay, well,
yeah.
okay, so that's it, it's 7, that's unanimous.
So, I mean, you guys wanna consider 63 separately? Cause it is in a very different position, and as Daniel walked it, Tom drove by it.
Give it a shot and see what
Yeah,
happens.
okay,
You can always revisit
Let's
it.
try and sell it anyway.
Comes to work.
You know, when I was on HCC, I think Keith can agree with me that when they played these lots, it's probably done by real estate. people. And not all the lots here, I don't think. That's my opinion.
Okay. All right, moving on to new business, item number 8. 8A, certification of the 2024 election, Rob?
Thanks, Katie. So, I think everybody got a copy of the certification letter. And what I propose is, I'd like to go through the letter and share out some of the data. And then, I'd like to make a motion that we certify the election. And then at that point, if anybody has any questions or comments, that would be, I think, the way to go. So I think we have a good, professional, well-ran election. So there were members of the NE committee, and Joanne joined us on Friday at 4:30 prior to the AGM to remove all of the remaining ballots in the ballot box and secure them in the gun cases, and so we did that. During the election itself, there were 3 representatives from UNELECT. It was kind of neat. Andrew and Catherine are now joined by their son, Jack, who's going to be taking part in the company. And it's just, having been in the county, I wasn't there last year because I was a candidate, it was really good to see how well oiled their processes are and professional. They know what they're doing and they do it well. While we were in the counting room, we had members from the community who were observing, or they silent observers, or they were helping to take the ballot materials out of the envelopes. And then Kyle Katzenbach from the staff was down there, as well as Joanne dropped in several times. So let's go through the data a little bit. There were 3,120 ballots mailed. There is a postage statement in that regard. There were 993 ballots were counted, and it comprised of 509 mail-in ballots, which went to UNELECT.
Yeah, 569, is that correct?
Oh, my glasses are dirty. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
I think I need better readers. 569 were mailed in, thank you, Keith. 406 were dropped off into the ballot box itself. And there were 18 that were voted on the day of the AGM. There were 101 ballots that were not counted, comprising of 2 members that were not current, but they did get to vote in the budget under the state law. There were 37 ballots that were returned late. When UNELECT returned back to California, they found that there were 34 that they had received post the the ballot period. 4 ballots had no signature. 6 ballots were just in the secrecy only, so we had no way to identify who they were. 52 ballots were returned as undeliverable. And there were none that were considered an invalid owner. There was any discrepancies. And there was one replacement ballot was issued. So as a result, the official counting and what many of you guys saw at the AGM was Ray Meadow received 713 votes. He received a 3-year term. Rick Isai received 689 votes for a 3-year term. Tammy Vandepolder received 615 votes for a 3-year term. And Tom Henning received 610 votes for a 2-year term. So congratulations to all of you. In regard to the ACC, there were 2 candidates for 8 open positions.
I think there was.
There were 6?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can amend that. Thank you for that, Daniel. Ellen Helbigen received 775 votes for a 3-year term. Daniel Vink received 664 votes for a 3-year term. And there were 4 open positions for the nominations and election, and there were no one that applied for that. Going to the ballot, or going back to the measures, measure number 1, which would be either to approve or disapprove our budget. There were 621 votes to approve. There were 340 votes to reject. And I have an asterisk. I just wanted to point out that that budget was approved by 65% of those ballots that were counted. So then the bylaw amendment, that is measure number 2, that was the bylaw that needed to be cleaned up so it wasn't in conflict on how we handle if a director resigns or is removed for the remainder of the year. That was approved, 854 votes. Reject was 82, and that was a little over 91% approved. And then I'd just like to share this section is voting issues. There was no areas of concern, but there are some what I refer to as opportunities for improvement. So I'll share with those here at the end. So the election, we placed some countermeasures in place to try to alleviate some of the problems that we had last year. One of those being a larger, more colorful mailing envelope with a window on it. We can't really say that we got a better return rate, but many of us still feel that that is something we should go forward with in 2025. It just is more visible, and I think we could try some other things to get the attention of the community to return their ballots. Also, we utilized AMS. It's not an acronym, that's the name of the company. So AMS is a printer mailer up in Blaine. So we were able to go up to their facility, look at the printed materials itself and proof them and say, yes, we gave them a thumbs up. We actually watched them being printed. So there were members of the AE committee that were there, along with Joanne and Linda Bradley joined us. So it was that was a good thing. And in fact, Unilec told us that they greatly appreciated AMS. In fact, they were more responsive in communication, taking phone calls and getting back to them than even some of their other subcontractors. And when we were there talking to AMS indicated to us, hey, we are a subcontractor to Unilec, so they fully understood their role. So we would like to continue using them next year. We didn't hear anything from any of our Canadian members that they didn't receive any ballots. So by having AMS courier those over to the Canadian post office, I think helped. Also having those ballots carried over 3 days before the US ballots mailed also helped. What else in here? So we liked having our candidate forums a little bit earlier, the first one, so that the whole idea was, could we get the attention of people so that they got their ballots and that they could have a chance to meet and listen to y'all and make some decisions. The meet and greet, unfortunately I wasn't here, but I think that was something else that we would like to do next year as well. So with that, it's probably not something under this business, but the NE committee would like to strongly encourage the board to ask Joanne to begin to enter into a contract with you. We realize that they've been working with us for, this is the 5th year, but the previous NE committees were saying, hey, it wasn't easy to find a vendor. This company works very well. They understand us. They know us. They know our needs. We ask for things from them that other HOAs don't ask for. And they understand that and they prepare it for us and don't even complain about it. So I don't know if that's appropriate. Maybe our next meeting, Keith, I can get that on the agenda to move that we asked Joanne to do that. In fact, Joanne and I have talked about it. Then the last thing is the parliamentarian. I thought he was excellent. He gave me some feedback about wording of the ballot itself, which was good feedback. And I propose that the NE committee proposes that we get a contract with him prepared. I think the sooner we do these things now than waiting until later in the spring, the better to get on these people have performed well. Some opportunities for improvement that I mentioned. We have got feedback from some of the candidates that scheduling the candidate forums, we kind of caught them by surprise. There was some travel and plan and whatnot. So we're going to add on the application letter, if there's any, we're going to have these forums in October. If you have any, travel plans outside of Sudden Valley, let us know so we can plan that accordingly, because we really want every candidate to have the opportunity to be there in those forums. We want to look at the timing of the forums. We're seeing less people coming. We have a lot of young families, and is it are we asking people to come at the right time for them? And yet at the same time, it could be that people just want to use YouTube and watch it online. So there's that, and I think we could look at some of the questions that we've asked. What else? Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. So, one other suggestion. I think it would be good if we asked Paul, or I think is it McDonald, Joanne? Is it McClintock. I think it might be good if we asked him to join us for a couple of our board meetings to kind of help us with Robert Rules of Order. We all have really good intent, but sometimes I just think it would be good as a opportunity for improvement to, maybe that he could help us with streamlining our meetings. Because I know there's sometimes where I'm not sure, am I if I want to add something or whatnot, am I doing that appropriately? So with that, on Monday, the NE committee approved the certification of materials that we shared with you. And I would like to move that we certify the 2024 AGM election for both all the candidates and the measures.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. In the second paragraph, it says on 11/1/2023, that should be changed to 11/2/2024. I didn't look at this real close. I was doing some other stuff.
Yeah.
But there's that date, we should probably change that before we stick this in somewhere.
We will.
The final, and also down in the summary, it says. 6 ballots for secrecy only, lack the pink identifying envelope, it's blue, and you may wanna just say lack from now on or next year or whenever. Rather than saying blue or pink, just lack the identifying envelope. But that should be changed from pink to blue,
Thank you, Linda.
and I think, Daniel pointed out that there were 2 candidates for the 6 open cases.
I will make those corrections and send those out tonight.
Okay, other than that, it's just real minor,
Sometimes copying and pasting from previous years.
yeah,
is such a.
been there, done that.
But thank you.
Simon?
I just have a really quick comment. I was just thinking that for any members who did not, because we had a number that were returned, if you didn't get a ballot this year, maybe call into the office and make sure that your correct mailing address is on file at the office. That might help you get your ballot for next year.
Okay, to re-clarify, so we had Rob made the motion, moved that the board of directors accept the 2024 election certification presented by NNE Chair Rob Gibbs, including all candidates and measures and corrections by Linda Bradley. That'll be made, saying that was seconded by Linda. All in favor of the amended motion? All right,
It's unanimous.
that's unanimous, Lori.
Can't see her. Lori, are you yay or nay?
Maybe zoned out.
She is-
Can I make one last comment? I forgot.
You can,
Very,
yes.
very quick. I wanna thank, I really wanna thank Joanne and Linda. They were very helpful. When we started getting the heat of things and, going into the September timeframe, going to EMS, they were extremely helpful to our committee, and I want to thank them.
Very nice. Thank you,
Nice.
Joanne and Linda. Very nice. Thank you, Rob. Okay, we didn't get a vote from Lori on that?
Lori, were you, and she's raising her hand now.
Okay,
Okay, so it's unanimous.
it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, moving on to 8B, director's assignments for standing committee. Amy?
I have a list of the committees here. I would like to, well, actually, I would like to nominate Ray Meter for chair of the Long Range Planning Committee.
I second.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, all in favor of Ray, chair of Long Range Planning? You have been
You're not gonna raise your.
thusly appointed.
So we can vote for yourself.
You've been duly appointed. Very good. Glad to have that. Good.
I would also like to nominate Rick Asai to be his second in command on the Long Range Planning Committee.
Rick is co-chair.
Second,
Thank you, Linda and Amy. All in favor is Rick is co-chair.
Lori is a yes.
Okay. So appointed.
We also need a nomination to have Lori on the Finance Committee.
I nominate Tiny Vanderpolder as the
I
second on finance.
I second.
So that was Linda and Lori. Amy. And that's for co-chair?
Yeah.
All in favor? Okay, so appointed.
I'd also like to nominate Linda Bradley for the chair of the Document Review Committee.
ERC. I'll second that. Oh, that was mine, sorry. All in favor for Linda, chair of Document Review Committee?
Lori's a yes.
Appointment. That's a yes, that's appointed. Good. Okay,
I'd like to nominate Tiny Vanderpolder as my second board member on the document review committee.
Yeah, I'll second. All in favor is Tiny as co-chair of DRC. Okay. Co-chair, Tiny.
Yeah, that's like, so that for ad hoc committee,
So we don't have anybody else, no, because that's coming up later, that's the NE members are coming up later.
Mhm.
ACC, they still need to have their meeting and elect their chairs,
We got them.
Yeah.
okay.
appeals we don't need to do right now until we see if we have an appeal. STR committee's not set up yet. And
What sense to you?
short-term rentals,
Short-term rental,
we're still working on that, but we're bringing that to the next meeting. Okay,
What about safety?
I was just gonna get there. That's my next one. I would like to nominate Rick Asai as the chair of the safety committee. If he's willing to do two.
can we reapprove the charter or the resolution
let's
for
do
the
that
committee
first.
first?
Yeah.
We really need to do that because it's ad
Okay.
hoc. The 8C,
Well, I just want to add something, I was elected chair of ACC already, we had a meeting.
you did have in your, thank you. So I
All right,
would,
are we done then?
Well,
you know, we need to make a motion, and I believe there's a document in here somewhere, all I have to do is find it.
There is the resolution for the safety committee.
It's in here somewhere, I know it is.
It's right here.
Oh, it's in here, it's in here.
Are we
So
done
those-
with the standing committees?
Yes, we're done with
Okay,
standing.
so we're moving on to 18 now.
Yes,
Okay.
there's
thank
a
you.
resolution to reestablish the Sudden Valley Community Safety Committee. I sent a copy to Joanne. We made some changes before this was approved last year. The changes are included in there. And this original charter and the resolution was adopted on April 11th, 2024. So I would make a motion that the board reestablish the safety committee for the year 2025.
Second,
And, any questions about reestablishing the safety committee? Hearing none, let's move to vote. All in favor of reestablishing the safety committee?
Unanimous.
That's unanimous.
And now they want to
Now,
remember.
now
if
if you
you'd
go
like
back to,
now you
you
gotta.
can always, you don't have to accept if you get nominated, by the way. But I would like to go back to nominating Rick Asai as the chair of the safety committee.
I'll second that.
You good with that one, Rick?
Sure.
Two committees? You put your name on a lot of stuff, so this is why you're coming up twice.
All in favor of Rick Asai as chair of the safety committee? That's that's unanimous?
I'll speak up.
We need a second board member for that committee, please.
Anybody want to volunteer? Okay, Tom? I nominate Tom Henning as co-chair of the safety committee.
I'll second that. All in favor of Tom Henning as co-chair of the safety committee? That's unanimous? That's right.
No, we're good. We're on to 18 now.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for stepping in. All right, moving up to 8C, or 8G, excuse me, approval request native plant garden. Joanne?
Right, so I have here a folder that includes handouts from the neighborhood native landscaping program that's supported by Whatcom County. I'd like to send that around so people can take a look while I'm reading the memo.
I'm actually familiar with it, so I'll go ahead and. Yeah.
And the purpose of this memo is to request the board's approval for a proposed 2025 native landscaping project. Whatcom County supports the Lake Whatcom Neighborhood Native Landscaping Program, or NNLP. This past year, a representative of that program contacted me to describe their work and asked if SPCA had any common areas that might benefit from native landscaping. We met on site to look at a few areas that could be appropriate and determined that the best project to pursue would be a demonstration garden located on unlandscaped grounds surrounding the Welcome Center. The NNLP prepared a proposal and asks that SPCA commit to preparing the ground for planting and maintaining the plantings for 5 years. In return, the NNLP will plant an assortment of native plants and provide interpretive signs that describe the benefits of such plantings to the local environment and watershed. So people could come and not only say, oh, pretty, but they could read about the plants and what they're good for, work, not work, that sort of thing.
Gives them idea for their homes.
Yeah.
For their site base.
Yeah. So exhibit A of the attached maintenance agreement shows where the garden would be planted. Covering an area of 6,475 square feet, the garden would showcase native plants, improve the appearance of this highly trafficked area, and improve the moisture retention of the soil next to the lake. It would offer practical inspiration to residents who are unfamiliar with native plants and encourage the use of plants that require little intervention to flourish in our environment. Ultimately, the use of native plants and landscaping is good for the community because it reduces the amount of water and fertilizer that is used to maintain more traditional landscaping. Maintenance and Facilities Manager Mike Brock and Turf Care Superintendent Grady Wadden reviewed the requirements for preparing the ground in advance of the planting and also the requirements around performing annual maintenance. Their estimates for the initial site preparation and annual maintenance are shown in the tables below. So it would cost about $7,741 for materials to prepare the ground. It's quite a large area, but most of that was slated to purchase topsoil. Currently, there's gravel installed in part of area A on the map. And it's not useful for parking. We don't, because it's too deep. So that gravel will be scooped out and replaced with topsoil. For maintenance, we could get sprinklers or drip irrigation and just run it from the faucet on the outside of the Welcome Center. But if we didn't want to do that, Turf Care has a tank waterer that they could use. And the recommendation from NNLP is to water weekly during the summer months. And if we did that using the tank water, it would be about $300 in labor. So that's not very much really. Weeding, we propose to use our volunteer program to perform regular weeding maintenance throughout the season. And then mulch and replacement plants, if any of them die, that would be about $500 a year. So the cost is not very high. But it would really be, I think, a beautiful addition to the community. Anyhow, I'm a gardener, so I'm biased, but the plan for paying for all of this, the external cost of site preparation can be paid out of budgeted operational funds in 2025. Specifically, we have $5,000 in landscape repair and maintenance, and more than $40,000 that's allocated to building repair and maintenance. And there's $7,500 in equipment rental, so we can cover easily right out of our operational budget. No additional funds would be needed. I believe that the initial and ongoing labor costs to this are negligible and will be offset by recruiting volunteers to help maintain the new community feature. The plan that NNLP sent to us, you can see it detailed in Exhibit A. Area C1 on the plan is right adjacent to both the deck of the Welcome Center and the Lake Louise, and it's currently completely overtaken by thistles. So it's extremely unattractive. You can't walk through there because the thistles are really sharp. You can see that we left a space for people to continue to get through to the lake and launch their boats or their paddle boards. And the area that's designated as C2 would have a gravel pad installed. So that we can still have the table and chairs. A lot of people come and eat lunch, either after or before they walk around the lake at their lunch break. So those features would be maintained. The maintenance agreement was reviewed by our lawyer, and he came up with the same thing that I did, which is basically, the agreement says that if we don't maintain it, the county could charge us for the cost of the plants. So I spoke to them about that at NNLP, and they said that in the history of their program, they've never charged anyone. But they would estimate, it's about $2 per square foot for the plants. So that would be about $12,000 if we didn't do the minimal maintenance that they required of us. So there is a risk to signing this, and that's what it is specifically. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward agreement.
I think there was gardening.
Pardon me?
Yeah, there was gardening.
Yeah. So anyway, I would request that the board of directors approve the NNLP maintenance agreement and authorize the general manager to sign it on their behalf. So this would, soil preparation, in the spring and planting in the spring of next year. No work would happen in 2024. We want to sign the agreement and get on their calendar.
All right, so the motion is move that the board of directors approve the NNLT maintenance agreement and authorize the general manager to sign it on their behalf.
Second.
Thank you, Linda.
Sorry.
Okay, questions, comments?
Yeah, question.
I'm sorry, I gotta look around and look at your hand at first, Rick.
So I think that's a good idea. I think little beautification and education in the area of plants is great and very worthwhile investment, I think. There's no date in the agreement, and I wonder if, I mean, they say in the preface, you say in 2025, but there's no timeline in their agreement that I can find. Maybe it's hidden in there.
Yeah.
I
There is no timeline, you're exactly correct. I had an email from the representative of the program that's been working with me today. And she indicated that once we sign this, she would respond with an MOU that had those specifics in it. But what we agree to do specifically for site preparation, and when it would happen, and so those details would be fleshed out later.
So we can't really disturb the soil though until June, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, rototilling is maybe different, but probably. This would be managed by this project next year would ideally be managed by our turf care superintendent, who's got the background to understand plants and all of that, as well as the equipment more suited for doing this work. So I would leave those details up to him. But this agreement indicates our intent to participate in the program, and then those details would come back next year.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm on board with this entirely. I'm just concerned with the actual design of this. I mean, are they gonna provide us with the layout of the plants that they're gonna use? And would our turf care person be responsible for, maybe putting a split rail fence around it or anything that would make it a nicer space?
Yes, those details would be worked out once we indicate that we're willing to accept the responsibility and participate in the program under these conditions.
Any consideration about deer eating the new plants?
That was my question too. Like, they're old enough to eat it all up.
Yeah.
We can't maintain it, so it's 12 grand.
So deer, the deer go everywhere, right? But we've only had two deer incidents. One was a fawn came through the bars of that fence.
Oh.
And then her mom was on the other side and she could easily have jumped it, but she was confused and she didn't like the activity, so we reunited them. And then a doe wandered in to eat the apples last fall. They haven't discovered them this year. There's an apple tree growing right there. Typically, there's so much activity there that we don't see the deer coming into the enclosed area, which is where this would be.
That apple tree would be affected?
That's what my question was gonna be.
Yeah, I don't know, I think that's one
Thanks,
of the
Renee.
design specifics that we'll flesh out once we get, officially in the program.
Do we have estimated labor costs? I know we have materials, what are the labors?
3-man crew, 3 days, min, 5 days max.
Okay, 3 minutes, 3 day.
Yeah.
3 minutes, 3 day, 5 day max.
3 to 5 days. Mike said, and Greg agreed, that three men, 3 days would be adequate unless something went wrong.
Okay,
Since no project has ever not had something go wrong.
who else have there? Linda?
Just 2 questions, the apple tree, because I think that's really nice there, and I hope they're not gonna get rid of it. My question is, it says here replacement plants, do we get the replacement plants from them then?
They can, yeah.
You know, cause I was gonna say, if they plant specific stuff, sometimes if they're native plants, they're hard to find. You know, if you have to replace that all. That was my questions.
Yeah, well, not only do they have access to suppliers of those native plants, but they also get them at a discount, so I think continuing to work with them to get those replacements would be a wise course of
And
action.
we're gonna put in bumpers too for cars, right?
We currently have bigger rocks, they're called 1-man rocks, placed at 6-foot intervals, and we would, around that circular area where the apple tree is, we would extend those down. But part of this is that the parking areas would be lined and they would have backstops, so part of the initial setup cost is to buy those backstops to keep the cars from rolling into it.
Gotcha. Great. Thanks.
Good plan.
Tom?
Yeah, this is kind of along the same subject line, only it's anti-growth. I was really impressed with the article in the news about that guy that was taking his own time to try to cut out the water lilies and Lake Louise.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see him get some help. It's been several years ago now. I saw a project being advertised on TV. And it was a throwing. You throw up a dock or on a boat.
He uses those,
And you just towed it and it cut everything off at the bottom of the lake.
Nikki has 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, we have 2 in maintenance and we lent them to him to use.
I think he had one sold, maybe he only had 2, but I know that's what he was using.
Yeah, and that rig works really great, Tom, like you saw, but that's the easy part. The hard part is picking up the vegetation and pulling it to shore.
That's heavy.
Yeah, and maintenance worked with Brian. Who's the person who did all that work this year, but he would bring it to the shore and leave it. Basically where this garbage is going in one section of it, and then maintenance would pick it up every Monday. When they emptied the garbage cans and take it for disposal.
Great idea.
We also supported him by allowing him to moor his boats there. And, kept an eye on him when he wasn't there to use it.
Okay, sounds like we're done with discussion on this, so the motion on the table is move that the board of directors approve the NNLP maintenance agreement and authorize the general manager to sign it on their behalf. All in favor?
Laura's a yes.
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Joanne, ex-GM Memorial.
We can put your, like,
Bench like outside the
the picture of the candidate forum, we can
Okay.
do that for you. Don't take the beat around it though, like, the we suggested for next.
Thank you.
Under the spreading apple tree.
Okay, moving on to item 8E, approval request for Pacific Security contract terms. Joanne?
Thank you. So I'm requesting board approval for a small revision to the term in the Pacific Security contract that defines eligible guards. SVCA's current contract with Pacific Security includes a requirement that the guards assigned to our account must be approved drivers. This requirement has a very specific meaning for Pacific Security. It requires 3 years of driving experience with a clean record. Because many young people can't afford either a car or the insurance for that car, a much smaller percentage of Pacific Security staff meet this requirement than even 5 years ago, when they, or 6 years ago when they first signed it. Mark Land is the regional manager for Pacific Security, and he's our contact for anything that's not a day-to-day matter. He reached out to me and recommended that we make this change because he felt strongly that it would improve the quality and availability of guards to staff our account. In our discussion of the proposed change, he noted that despite having the requirement for this clean driving record 3-year experience, despite that requirement, 2 guards had to be removed from our roster because of accidents that occurred while driving security vehicles. Now, none of these accidents were serious. We were able to do the cosmetic repairs that were required, so it never rose to the level of board.
Right.
You know, I never need to notify you about them because we fixed them all, but again, Pacific Security has very strict standards, and once these people had basically had 2 little run-ins with bollards in one case, a gate post in another case, they were taken off of our roster. So I was very skeptical when Mark proposed this to me, and I said, it sounds to me, Mark, like we're gonna get less qualified drivers. And he said, it's true that you will be getting people who have driven for a shorter period of time, says, but I can tell you that you're gonna be getting better candidates overall. Typically, they're the people that they have as their approved drivers with these long driving records are not his best guards, and he flat out told me that. So it seems non-intuitive. We're relaxing a requirement in order to get better guards. However, Mark Land has been a very good and responsive partner to me in my 2 years here. He was one of the first vendors to reach out and say, hey, I hear you're the new, I'd like to meet with you, I'd like to talk to you. He does quarterly check-ins with me. If there's ever a serious incident, he is right on top of it. I have his cell phone number. So it's a very strong relationship. And if he's making this recommendation, I trust him. And that's what I wanted to portray to you, because on paper, this seems like we're going backwards.
We're lowering our standards.
We're lowering our standards to get better guards. It's
Being
counterintuitive.
a good driver is not a very high bar. I mean, I don't understand how it.
It's the length of time. He's not proposing to put people who have bad driving records,
Right.
but the younger people have not been driving. It's just the fact that he shared with me that the demographics are very different now.
So, I mean, we can't get a 20-year-old who's been driving for 3 years. I don't quite understand it.
We can't, because the 16 or the 17-year-olds, they don't get their license right away. A much smaller proportion of them are getting licenses because they literally can't afford the insurance.
So these people, what's their essential job then? They do a lot of driving.
Of course.
I don't know if they go to gate 5.
Security
That's a long way.
off the gate.
That's a long way to it.
One of the.
I mean, that's essentially what they do, is they drive to
Your house?
That's
I'm
driving.
not get lost in Sudden Valley,
neighbors.
a learner's guide.
Well, I think it's an important distinction. Their job is not driving around.
Sure.
Their job is to patrol the neighborhoods,
And report.
to observe and report, to open and close facilities, and to respond to calls. They also are sent to specific addresses to perform inspections and do other activities at need. So the majority of the work is observing accurately, observing carefully, reporting accurately, attending to the schedule and being responsive to calls. Now, to do that, they have to be able to drive safely. Okay, so I'm not saying that driving isn't an integral part of what they do, but it is not their job. Their job is to do those other things. To do those other things, they must drive. And I think that's a very important distinction. And what I can honestly tell you that the guards that they put on our account, one recent guard that was added to our account. Spent about 3 weeks, during which time he could not file a report because he couldn't figure out the phone. They do it via a smartphone with an application that automatically records a report and sends it to a distribution list internally. Okay, we have had another guard who. On a recent weekend, called Mike Brock at 5:30 in the morning on Saturday. To report that. They had gotten a call from the community to say that a generator was running in the turf care building. They went to the turf care building, they got out of the car and couldn't hear anything. So there was no generator running, and they called Mike at 5:30 in the morning to ask what they should do. Because the generator wasn't running. So.
Repair and security are all right next to each other.
Yeah. Sort of. Anyhow, the quality of guards is challenging, and. Like I said, I share your skepticism, and you don't have to prove this change. But I take what Mark Land tells me very seriously, and who would know better about his staff than me. And the current guards that we have are, some of them are great, others are not so great. We've had some guards that have worked here for years, the weekend and night guards. And they know the association like the back of their hands. You know, and they know the rules and the ins and outs, and they know the repeat offenders. And they're very good at filing their reports. So I don't want to characterize all of our guards as being challenged in some ways, but it is harder to staff than it was in the past, and he's asking for this.
Do you know what some of the qualifications are for these positions? 3 years of safe driving.
I'm only aware of Pacific Security's requirements in this particular area. The full contract is on file, and anyone can come in and read it if you're interested. But they do background checks, they do regular training, their guards are bonded. And they have field supervisors that are always available to them 24/7. So they are supposed to call their field supervisors to get help if they aren't sure what to do. They're not supposed to call Mike. But so that support structure is very.
Are like teenagers, essentially, is that,
Pardon?
are they teenagers or?
No, they have to be 18.
Okay. But they haven't been 2 years of.
Some of them are 20 and they don't have 3 years. That's the point, is a lot of younger people are not getting their license at age 17. It's very expensive. Their parents can't afford to add them to the insurance. They can't afford to pay them to pay for their driver's ed to get that early edge on. So it's hard.
Do we need to vote on this, whether we accept this or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we still got Rob and
What?
Linda, so Rob, you're next.
Yeah, just a question. If we pass this, would Mark be willing to rotate out some of the underperformers? And rotate, that's part of this.
That's his intent.
Okay. Well, my comment is, I would rather see somebody who has less driving experience, who's more conscientious of the job and can work a smartphone. Maybe. That makes better sense.
Tom, then Linda.
Yeah, and as far as the security system, one of the biggest complaints I hear in residents of Sun Valley is AC0. They don't see any value. As far as they're concerned, Gate 1 gets all the security. When they call, nothing happens. And they just don't see any value there.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
The patrols cover every single gate. They probably spend more time in the other gates because there are more incidents called in up there. I see many more reports from gates 3, 5, 9, 13, and 28 than I do from gates 1 and 2. Yeah, I do. And security is an important part of our compliance program. We do not issue a violation in 99% of the cases. unless we have documentation from security that the violation occurred. So they're an integral part of what we do, and maintaining 24/7 security is a requirement of our bylaw.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Or it's a requirement.
We have one or two people on at a time.
One. We have one person
One
on
person for all
24/7,
days.
365.
Linda?
So I have two questions. So since they are on our insurance, not Pacific Securities, do we still do an independence license check for the proposed staff, any staff that's here, the drug testing, that sort of thing that you go through? For anybody that's gonna be deployed regularly from Pacific Securities?
Pacific Security does the drug testing, and they have a program of random drug testing, and they also do the driver release of interest, so they get a driving record. So they're not putting people on our account that don't have a clean driving record, but they might not have 3 years.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying, I'm surprised that our insurance company does, if we're insuring this person on our vehicle, that we don't do this ourselves rather than rely on a second party, that's all. And the other thing I wondered is there any vehicle training for new guards? The one giant truck, if we were always using the little Honda, I wouldn't care, but that big truck requires, I think, a little more than just your average running, driving something. I don't know if anybody goes with them and, goes on a route and sees how well they do on some of our roads. Is there any sort of vehicle training for the new guards?
The current onboarding is that a new guard spends 2 shifts with another guard. And we can choose to add to that any requirements that we want. But right now, the main guy, he's here Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, is Timothy Castillo, and he basically shows people the ropes and shares the post orders, which are basically their standing instructions for what they do every day.
Okay,
So
I
no
just,
is the short answer. We don't do a driving test.
it's just, that's a big vehicle. Seriously.
What truck are you talking about? That's what you.
Security truck.
The security truck,
4-wheel drive.
Isn't that like it's a Chevy, right?
No, just a pickup truck, right?
Just a pickup. with-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom, and then Rob.
it's a big pickup truck.
Since we're required to supply their vehicles, do we have to give them regular vehicles? Could we give them ATV trucks? They're a lot easier to drive.
They don't have all the stuff in it. Don't they have communication stuff in the truck? Rigged with communications
You can put anything in these things.
We use cell phones mostly now. There used to be already a very sophisticated radio system, but the cell phone coverage and the devices are better, so we all use smartphone. We don't use the walkie-talkies
Okay.
except in certain instances. To answer your question, Tom, yeah, we could. We don't have those vehicles now, so we don't require them. Big expense.
Rob.
Yeah, just a comment that, I'm glad that we're still getting the incident data. And I recall in the past, we used to get a report, maybe it was the security, manager gave us that data. We got kind of a rundown of the, I forget all the data, Linda, you may remember.
Different sorts of incidents, the
Yeah.
number of, in a
Which
month.
days.
How many different things, noisy dogs, unruly houses.
But at least, if that's something maybe we look at quarterly or, at least the monthly, but, it's information that our community can see that they are getting out to the other gates.
Thank you, Rick.
So. I hear what you're saying, Joanne, that, you have a great amount of faith and trust in Mark. But these are these folks also under a union? They're not.
No, they're not.
Okay, so I was just thinking though, if we were to ask, if it was the reverse, if it was like no minimum driving other than clean driving record, and we asked them to up it to 3 years clean driving record, chances are they would ask for a higher salary. So now we're going down. I don't know, I'm all for getting better quality staff. But it does feel like we're going backwards.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know,
I trust Joanne, she's been talking to this guy.
yeah.
She deals with it, she's trying to set us up before she takes off.
I just know that the folks that we. Like I said, the majority of our guard staff have been here for some time and know what they're doing. There are some new guards that are always cycling in. And we have recurring issues with them. We had a guard who used to work very frequently, who just could not. She had a real problem with the driving, and the one that's classic is she parked by the side of the road when it was icy, it was on a slope. And sure enough, the truck slid right off. So just, she could have been driving for 10 years with a clean driving record, but the lack of common sense.
Yeah.
So either way, we get rid of somebody who's just not working out.
We do, but then we get cycled in another person, and he's being honest, he's saying the demographics of his hiring pool are changed.
Yeah.
And to get us the best candidates, he needs that to be relaxed. No one's happy about asking for this, and I agree completely, it seems like a bad thing to do. The only reason we would say yes is if we put our faith in the guy who runs the operation.
Well, we could try it for a while, see how it goes. You know, if there's issues.
We could, for sure.
So
Then you
the
revisit it.
folks that we're having issues with, are they're the odd shift hours?
No, it really.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Oh.
To our advantage, we perform regular maintenance on all of the vehicles internally. We have a wonderful member of our maintenance staff who's a qualified mechanic. And he knows immediately if someone's not driving the trucks appropriately or any of our vehicles appropriately. And Mike Brock reaches out and counsels people about if they're not driving correctly. We had someone who was sitting on brake, you know, because they were tentative about some of our steep slopes. Taught them, detected it, explained what the problem was, the problem solved. So they're, you know, by constantly maintaining the vehicle and being attentive to that. For example, we picked up on the cosmetic damage right away and told Pacific Security, hey, somebody did this and they didn't report it. And that was the biggest part of it to us, is they didn't report it. You know, it's pretty obvious if you know, get a 3 foot long yellow scrape on the side of the car because you scraped a baller, right? Yeah, so.
So I think, I have a similar feeling to Rob. I'm in favor of this, we get better people, but I would maybe put it out as a trial for a year or whatever. Just to put them on notice a little bit, I guess, that we're aware. And concerned.
Yeah.
You could add to the motion where it says, and authorize the general manager to sign the work order formalizing the change on a trial basis.
Yeah,
Yeah, very good.
do we want to set a time period, 6 months? 3 months?
A
Pretty
year.
much too short.
Let's do a year.
2 years.
Yeah.
A year,
Did you agree with that?
Yeah.
Good.
1 year, okay, that works.
Right, motion, you gonna read the motion?
I can
Okay, yeah, you sounded like you had it.
move that the board of directors approve the change to contract terms proposed by Pacific Security and authorize the general manager to sign the work order formalizing this change on a trial basis of 1 year. Second,
Who's second? Tanya?
timing.
All in favor? With revised changes?
Or seconds?
All right, that's unanimous.
Oh,
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, moving on to approval request for 2025 fines and fees schedule.
Thank you. On August 22nd of this year, the board of directors approved the revolving to take effect on January 1st. At that time, the board did not approve the proposed marina fees. Instead, they asked that I propose a new set of fees to reduce the complexity of the marina fee structure. On April 11th of this year, the board approved immediate increases to the architectural control fines and fees. These increases included changes to the fees charged for the extension of the building permission for new construction projects. Since that time, some builders have objected to the increases and association members have criticized those new fees as well. So it's marina fees, but also these extension fees that I'm going to talk about. SPCA's marina has three categories of wet slips: select, premium, and standard. The categories are based on the length of boat that each can accommodate. And you see the things there. Keith has pointed out that it's also about how wide they go.
Yes.
Because the marina is circular, which means that it changes based on where you're located. In the past, we've had three types of rental agreements that were available: wet slip only, dry slip only, and wet and dry slip combo. Since the marina rental agreement requires that a trailer be on site for each boat moored on wet slip, it doesn't make sense to let people only rent a wet slip. Now, this is what David was referring to. The purpose of requiring the presence of a trailer is to ensure that if a boat needs to be pulled, it's in danger of sinking, it's leaking oil, they haven't paid their rent. The trailer is ready to accommodate that boat, because you can't pull the boat out and just set it on the ground, it has to go on a trailer. For this reason, if we want to make this less complicated, we shouldn't rent wet slip only, because we need to have their trailer there, like for their boat, right? So that didn't make sense based on that requirement. The table included in the memo summarizes marina rental rates paid between 2020 and 2025, which is proposed rates, with a comparison to the annual SURF assessment that's paid by all members. As you can see in the table, while rental rates have doubled or almost doubled, SURF contribution has remained the same. From 2020 through 2024, it only goes up by 7% next year. This means that effectively marina renters who had slips for the 5-year period 2020 through 2024 paid the association between $5,638.50 for the standard wet dry combo, and for up to $7,075 if they got the highest, which was the select wet dry combo. Each of them paid that amount for the privilege of parking their boat at a wet slip. In 2025, renters of a standard slip will pay an extra amount to the association that is almost 4 times the assessed annual SURF contribution. So the only reason for including that is to give you some perspective. So over this period during which dues didn't increase and the SURF contribution didn't increase, the marina rates have almost doubled, or in some cases, just slightly more than doubled. Very, very significant increases. The table below shows a breakdown of the 2025 proposed marina rental fees. Please note that after the dry slip fee is subtracted from the total, the remaining amount, which would represent the wet slip portion of the fee, is just under $300 less than the amount charged in 2024 for the rental of a wet slip alone. So what that is saying, and to say that all in a different way, is if you took last year's wet slip only and added the dry slip only to it, it would be $300 more than the combo. So again, Jane David in her comment is correct. We are giving people who get both of those things a slight discount over the individual rate. If we look at that wet slip only cost from last year and in previous years. So the table with the green columns on the side there shows the 2024 rates in comparison to the proposed 2025 rates. So that's what the fines and fee schedule would look like if you approve those rates. If you accept and adopt these new rates and all slips are rented to members, SPCA will collect $233,146 in marina revenue. In 2024, we collected more than that. So this year we collected $240,976.50 in rental fees. And the difference between the actual revenue we have this year and the projected revenue is just under $8,000. And that's accounted for by the fact that 15 rental contracts in 2024 at the marina were held by non-members. And if you look in the table, non-members pay a heck of a lot more than members do. So by saying, you know, we're gonna preferentially put members into those slips before we put non-members in, which seems fair. But we're gonna forego some revenue as a result of that. So that's about $8,000 in my estimate. So that's about the marine fees.
I have a quick question for you on that, before you get into your, so I thought last year you said there was only like 2 non-members that were running the slips.
That was true in our records. They had been members and then they moved. So this year, we did an exhaustive audit of everyone. Like, we looked, Tiny and others looked at it, staff looked at it, and we required that people show us. If they were renting here, they had to show us that the owners of the property had ceded their rights to them. And so we were able to detect members or renters who were not members. There are 7 people who had wet slips that this year were considered non-members. So this year,
Skated on hold.
that's right, they skated, and this year we found them out.
Yeah.
And the other non-member rentals are 4th lot slips.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's a great question. So if you don't mind, I'll go forward.
Yeah, yeah,
to the extension fee.
yeah.
So on May 9th, the board approved the extension timeline, the proposed extension timeline that you see in the table below. This change created a system that's much more consistent and easier to administer for ACD. However, 2 criticisms have been made of this new system. First, builders object that it is very expensive. And that we did on purpose because we want to encourage people from applying for extensions, and it's working. People are concerned about it, so they're trying to build faster. However, homeowners have also criticized it because they're saying it doesn't offer the builders any incentive to get done earlier. If you grant them a 6-month extension for $5,000, they paid for 6 months, by golly, they're gonna take those 6 months. So based on that feedback, I propose to change the way that the fees are charged. Instead of requiring the builder to pay the whole thing in advance, I suggest that we bill them monthly. Also in advance, but just by the month. That way, if the builder completes in less than the time that was approved by the ACC, they'll pay less. And it's an incentive for them to finish faster, so the homeowners have less aggravation. Less noise, less dust, less dirt, less trucks parking in the park. So the table there shows the exact change. Instead of paying the full amount, I've just divided it by either 6 or 12 months, and then there's a different amount that we were charging monthly.
Now you wouldn't bill monthly, you would actually take this out of their deposits or whatever.
No, we're billing.
You wouldn't bill them?
Yeah, and the reason that we do it that way is, it says in the rules and regulations that fines and fees are to be charged at the moment when they become necessary. Like, so if you're buying something, a good or a service, you pay the fee.
Yeah.
And the violation, if there's a violation, that should be charged to the homeowner's account at the time of the violation. And by letting them take it out of the deposit, it's actually, it's not a good system because they wait till the end. As opposed to having a penalty in the moment and then they say, oh,
Yeah.
I don't wanna do that again, right? So it's a better system. This would not require the ACC to hear it every month and grant an extension. They would still be granting the full time period, but we would charge for it, so administration would handle that additional work.
Yeah, this does simplify it quite a bit. I wonder if there's any value in adding an admin fee to this if they're paying monthly. I don't know if that adds any extra man hours to that process.
It does, there's already a lot of complaining.
$100 a day.
Well, I would consider rounding it up. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, 833.33 is a ridiculous amount, like if you
Yeah.
made that 850.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't wanna, suggest that out of the box, and then the 1666, maybe that could be 1700. Per month,
Whatever you think those man hours are worth, I mean.
well, right now, it's, we use a project management software to manage the active projects. And we can create a reminder to remind us when it's due, because each project will be different. Some of them will come up on the 5th of the month, some on the 10th of the month, some on the 5th. Depends when you had your meeting and given the approval. Yeah.
Are we opening Pandora's box? I hate to be the one to say it, but. You know, it sounds good for the builders, but it's like, we can say, each build is different. You know, how many are already in this, in the whole thing that have paid that 6-month amount? And then when does this begin and how are you gonna grandfather builders that have already paid that full amount?
We could give them a refund if they finished early.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, I mean, there's less than 50 projects, it's not like there's 3,000. So we can figure it out, but it is work.
A lot of this would go away if the owner learned to put a performance clause in the contract they have with the builder.
A lot of them are on spec,
What's that?
a lot of them are on spec.
Spec. Or spec homes.
No builder, I mean, no.
There's no homeowner, they're builder owners.
Okay.
So, comment, question I have is, if the builder, the moment that they become, let's say they miss the payment. The moment that occurs, do we put a stop order on the site?
We haven't done that so far, we could.
I'm just wondering if we start getting into this. When I was on ACC, maybe it's different now. But there was so many times where those guys would try to ask for forgiveness, or I didn't know, or you didn't call me, or you didn't.
Well, I think this process simplifies it quite a bit. There were a lot of people who I think were trying to extend the first extension. And it got really confusing, but the way it's laid out now, it's very clear that you give a certain amount of time. You come to ask for an extension, but it's almost automatic.
Right, I'm just, it's good, it sounds like it's good for the community, or it's good for the builder, gives an incentive to the builder, but I'm asking, where's the teeth in it too?
Well, the fees have come up quite a bit.
Well, I'm just saying, if I don't write Joanne a check for 2 months, then what, you know?
Well, we've been giving builders due dates. They get a letter, they apply for an extension, the committee approves or denies. If it's approved, they get a letter of approval. That letter of approval says the fee for your extension is due by this date. And if they don't pay by that date, we will issue a stop work order. Nobody's gone there yet. They've all paid.
Cool.
One instance, a builder asked for an extension for payment because they told me they didn't have the cash. And I gave them an extension, which is now up. And now we're going back and following up on it. So we have a very good process now for tracking these things. It is extra work, but it's not, I'm not trying to help the builders, although that's legitimate. I think that the real important thing here is to get the projects done as quickly as we can. This system offers a benefit to everybody.
Yeah.
It entices the builders to do it a little faster because they can save some money.
Yeah.
And it comes right off their bottom line, right, those fees. And it's much better for the homeowners to see it done in 13 months as opposed to 2.
Absolutely.
Right, so if they can accomplish that, why wouldn't we incentivize?
But I do think an admin fee would be helpful.
Yeah, it's warranted for sure, it's a lot of work.
Linda?
I wanted to say, the only thing I have to say is I agree with, we should round up the fees to like 850, 1700. When we get close to that 5,000 mark, I think we need to leave that there in the 10,000 mark. If there's a difference then, because I haven't done the math, guys, between like you paid 850, how many times? you get close to the 5,000, is that last payment gonna be a little bit different then? Or do you just say no, then you're at the
It's
10,000
a
mark?
service fee, just call it a service fee.
So they would choose
Around it.
at the beginning whether they're gonna do the monthly or the
Well,
six
yeah, they
months.
say it all up front and say the $50 service.
Like we use a credit card for more sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a clever solution to addressing the issues.
But I think that extra money would cover the extra time that's gonna be spent if these people do go to monthly. And I think a lot of them will. After
Yeah.
hearing one appeal that I recently, it hurt, oh, yes, I heard it.
It's a good incentive, and I think we do need to anticipate if somebody gets done in 4 months instead of the 6 months they've already paid for, that we look at refunding the difference plus the service fee.
We go back to the marina piece.
Well, you're doing.
Well, anyway,
Bottom or the-
Oh,
sure,
sorry. Go ahead.
so just to reiterate, the ACC would not re-review the extension request every month. They're still only gonna hear it for the 6, and then the third extension is a 12-month. They approve it for the maximum number of months and then administration manage monthly payments. And so I request that the board of directors approve the proposed changes to the 2025 lines and fee schedule.
All right, so the motion is move that the board of directors approve the proposed changes to the new construction extension fees.
Are we gonna modify them? To round them off?
Yeah, yeah,
Sound like it.
Well, that's,
with modifications.
there we go.
Can I ask a question? Real quick, I've had my hand up for a while.
Oh,
Oh,
don't
Spencer,
worry.
So
Like, you had it over there.
I can't hear, I can't see her.
why,
Okay. Go ahead, Lori.
if it's $20,000 per year,
Go ahead.
so is there a reason why if we charge them, say, $20,000 for the final 12-month extension, that we don't just charge them the 20,000 and then have in it there that for every full 30 days that they complete ahead of schedule, that we refund them 1/12 of, you know, I mean, that's like how most constructions do, like, if you're hiring someone to build your house or have a construction project and they finish ahead of schedule, there might be like a bonus that they get paid for finishing ahead of schedule. Why, instead of having to bill them every month and chase after people who aren't paying or anything like that, because we haven't started that yet, correct? So
We have started it, we started it back.
why don't we just still collect it and then the monthly payments
Yeah, that would be another way to do it. It still offers an incentive,
already?
slightly less work, so.
Yeah.
Do we have to pick between?
And it gives them more incentive because if it's finish, they get their money back. So it would be extra incentive. They're gonna save on their construction loan. They're going to get their money back faster. They're gonna get the house on the market. I can't see that builders want to take longer. So is it less work to issue a refund or more work to do monthly billings?
Wait, I read the last paragraph, but it kind of says.
I have already answered. I think that would be another way to do it for sure.
Well, what's less work?
Well, it's clearly less work to do a refund, it's like, yeah, obviously. Yeah, I mean, an issue for the builders is out of pocket cash.
Yeah. But especially when it gets, 5,000 is a little bit, but then, you get to the second one, you're talking 10,000
$10,000 is a
bucks.
lot.
Yeah, 10 grand is a lot of money on a construction loan, the constructing costs.
Well, if they don't have the 10 grand, then maybe they should finish in a year.
I agree with you, Lori.
Daniel, do you have a sense? You talk to the builders as much as I do.
I know that they're always asking for a couple extra months, we'll be done in, 3 months. They say that, maybe they have good intentions too, but. I mean, I think it's a good way to do it, I think it's a good way to break it up, so they probably will finish earlier. If I had another year, to take it unless they really need to sell, maybe an incentive also.
Yeah.
But, so I assume that, if they go beyond first year and they're on the monthly payment plan, the extension would be, even if they're on the monthly payment plan, it would be for another 6 months.
Right,
Okay.
If they finished in 3, then they would only pay the $850 times 3.
But the
Rather
extension
than
would stop until.
Sorry. right, and this will be billed monthly at a rate of X.
So how is a partial month then? Like a whole,
How's what?
A partial month.
a partial month, so say they work 10 days into a month, it's the whole month, right?
They pay in advance, just like rent, no prorating.
Yeah, so do we need to reword this so then you're not gonna bill them monthly then, we're saying I thought you said you couldn't take it out of their fees or out of their deposit or anything.
We don't, we're billing them. So if, right now, though, we're billing them 5,000 within a week after the extension is granted by the committee
In advance and
in
then,
advance.
Okay, and then we're still gonna do that, but you will refund them.
Right, so I don't know how to put that in there, but I can come up with something, sure. So if that's what you approve, I'll figure out the wording.
yeah, for every 30 days, you get done early, they move the.
Either 1/6 or
Yeah.
or 1/5.
It's just weird amounts of money when you do it that way. You come up with all these, $833.33 and.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna determine what the admin fee would be if we add one to it.
And I see Lori's point that,
Yeah.
get the deposit and then refund at the end. But this is gonna be a lot easier for the builders if you do it monthly, especially the small guy. Who is really tight on his budget at the end and coming up with $20,000 instead of $1,700 a month. It's gonna be a lot easier for them to swallow.
Well, I mean, we do have to remember that we expect it to be finished in a year. That's the expectation, but my neighbor right now, he's been working on his house, it's a part-time job for him. But for me, it's full-time, I've got the porta potty in the front yard, he's been working on it through.
People blocking up the road, trusses delivered.
And that's,
$100 a month doesn't jump change though, it's a.
I wonder why you did that for a potty in your front yard. The only level spot. No, I get it now.
Alright, so then we're leaving this as it's worded. And we're gonna stay with it as it is in the chart, is that correct?
Probably we're gonna change the amounts to make them an even.
Well, we're rounding them up,
Rounding them up.
that's the only change?
I think so.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
Okay, so right now, the motion on the table is move that the board of directors approve the proposed changes to the new construction fees, which include.
With
Yeah,
modifications.
with modifications. Well, we gotta say what it is.
as discussed.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That works.
that always works.
So I'm confused. What? Maybe I missed something. So are we voting on billing them monthly?
Yeah,
Yes.
Or, okay, so I'm voting against that.
Yeah. Okay. So the motion is, move that the board of directors approve the proposed change of new construction fees with modifications as discussed.
Second,
All in favor?
and Lori's against.
2, 3, 4, 5, and Lori opposes. 6, yes.
Again, I'm not opposing
Oh.
them
Wait.
paying for only the amounts the months that they go in. I am opposed to billing them monthly versus billing them in full and refunding them. So I'm opposed to the measure as written.
okay, we gotcha.
All right, very good. All right, motion 2, move that the board of directors approve the proposed changes to the marina rental fees.
Discussion.
Boy, someone got a second, eh?
Second,
Thank you.
second.
Okay, any discussions, questions or comments?
So I have a comment. I really appreciate Joanne, acknowledging that the tenant fees have gone up every year fairly significantly. I think we're probably at, market value. We've had a lot of discussion about that. I just want to make sure I understand. So what we're proposing here is that we remove the wet slip only. And then we're adding $100 to these fees, so that really what we're doing is charging $100 for someone to store their trailer while their boat's in the water. Is that right?
We're reducing the discount that they're being given. For the dry slip. Because if you take the wet slip only fee and you add the dry slip only fee, that's larger than the combo rate. So effectively, we're giving a discount of about $300 on the rental of the dry slip.
Okay.
Or the ones that were wet only.
Right.
Or we're giving a discount of $300 on the wet slip portion of the combo.
Right, and it's just a way of talking about it, it's not.
Yeah, so what portion of those that have, because we have some boats that are using the wet slips more months out of the year than the others, such as sailboats. Do we know what type of boat and the amount, the length of usage, per how many months per year are the wet slip only renters?
I mean, I think it's probably, you're right, it's probably the sailboats that are doing that, because they never
Sailboats, yeah.
move.
Yeah, that's
So, if you take the fee, if you take the amount, so like wet slip only, and they're using it 12 months a year, their effective rate per month is a lot lower than the combo slips. That if they're paying the full $500 or $600 of dry slip, and then you look at they're only using the wet slip 5 months a year, they're effectively paying quite a bit more than the wet slip only users. And if we now require all of those wet slip only users to have a dry slip as well, we are now going to we're going to decrease the amount of dry slip only users we can have. Where we will effectively say, since we now have to take up dry slip owners, so if we have wet slip only, which is where is this combo? So if we have 8 standard and 4, so we have 12 wet slip only. Now we have to find 12 dry slips for them. Which means if we already have a waiting list, what 12 people, is supposed to say nobody gives up their dry slip? Which 12 people who currently have a dry slip are we going to say, now you have no dry slip because we now have to issue a dry slip to these wet slip only owners?
Every year, there's far more volatility in the dry slips than the wet slips.
But that means that's like 12 more people who can't move off the waiting list.
What
Yeah,
I'm
we
saying,
can't talk at once.
what I'm saying is, I thought that the question was, we would tell current, people who are in dry slips that they have to vacate to make room for the wet slip only trailer. Is that what we're saying?
I don't think that would arise, is what I'm saying. I don't think that would happen, that scenario won't happen because we're suggesting that non-members will be deprioritized, right? And then B, we always have more turnover in dry slips. And just the natural turnover of people saying, nah, I'm not gonna do it this year, would take care of it. So it's not like we have to pick somebody out and say, you're out. That it's very low probability that would happen. I can't see that happening. I think.
But it's still gonna mean less people get to move off the wait list, because if, let's just say that the 12 current wet slip only users that we're requiring them to have a dry slip, that is 12 dry slip that can now, that will no longer, will not be available to assign to somebody who currently does not have a dry slip.
That's
So
true.
instead of moving 12 people off the waiting list, we're gonna take up those 12 newly vacated spots with people who don't need them.
Well, another thought that I had too is, and we may just wanna go ahead and go forward with this and work out the details, but. There could be what's like those sailboats. Sailboat trailers are. There could be tenants out there in the wet only that do not have a trailer.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And those sailboats that are in there all year long. My experience is they don't have a trailer.
So to be clear, this year, there are 14 tenants who only rent a wet slip, 14. Okay, but I think the bigger question is it okay to have a boat in the water without a trailer?
It's not okay.
That's the question. You see,
It's
it's
not
not
okay.
about making more slips available, it's about. We have 14 people. We have 14 boats in the water that didn't have a trailer there. If we had to pull them, we had nowhere to put them.
Joanne, if we were a full service marina and we had the ability. If we had a sling ability and we had blocking ability, we don't have that here. And we don't have the expertise that could do that.
So, yeah, you hire people.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to pull my boat, you couldn't use my trailer. It's got a lock on it. So it makes unless you have my key, you cannot use my trailer to pull my boat out of the water. And
Well-
I'm guessing that's probably the same for many, many people out here.
So Lori, just
Uh-huh.
hope you remember when Bob Woolman and I were volunteer, down there. There was twice where we needed to, there was somebody who was sinking. And then one of them was in Canada. We didn't do the actual work, staff did, but we helped them. And when we called we had the contact information for all the tenants for safety. We didn't have anyway, we had the contact information. And we called them and they asked for our help, staff came down, we towed the boat over, got it up onto the trailer and out of the way so it wouldn't sink. Yeah, if their trailer hadn't been there, each of those cases, they didn't have coupler locks, but in the scenario, let's say you and Pat were out cruising the Caribbean, I'd probably ask you, can I take a bolt cutter and cut your lock so we can prevent your boat from sinking?
Yeah, but but the way that the what is it called? What do we call it? Not calling, I don't want to say rental because that's not the words that we're supposed to be using.
Contract.
Not lease,
Or like-
whatever it is we're using, license.
Yeah.
The way that the agreement reads, that's not why we were gonna need to use their trailer.
Well, the agreement says that we can.
And I mean, if we were going to remove somebody's boat for non-compliance, you betcha we would not even want to touch their trailer and remove their boat. We would call somebody similar to whatever, somebody who goes and repos boats. We would have them take care of it. We're not going to get into the liability of pulling someone's boat in the water. If we want to see a lawsuit, touch somebody's boat and take their trailer, move it over without their permission and take their boat out.
So
That's not
the agreement
that's
says
not
we
going to
can
work
do
out
that.
well.
The agreement says that we can do that, and there isn't a repo company that would come and do that in, like, for example, down at Bellingham. They're gonna, if someone there's a derelict boat in there and they haven't paid for a certain amount of time, they're gonna tow it and they're gonna move it and they're gonna and they'll block it at Seaview because we're talking saltwater boats.
Uh-huh.
And it's something we could talk to Rich Davis about, we're kind of going off. I know I'm taking a right turn here and it's getting late, but. What I would propose is perhaps even putting together an advisory, team that could help. Sudden Valley, that team might even include, the harbor master down in Bellingham. To help us with, what do you do in these types of instances? Because there are best practices, we don't need to reinvent them.
And I think best practices, just from what I understand you guys saying, is there has to be the ability for us to have the authority to move a boat. under
The
certain
agreement grants
circumstances.
us, they sign a waiver of liability so that we can move their boats without any risk.
Any
Even if we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm-
There's
yeah,
a
that's what I'm
waiver of
saying.
liability, because we have to have the ability to pull it out in the event that it could sink, causing oil and gas to leak into the lake. That's true. And the current agreement says that they have to have a trailer on site so we can pull their boat. So if you want to have wet slip only rentals, the agreement should be changed.
Correct.
Yeah,
I agree that if we are going to have it, then we should take the part out of here that says where they have to have a trailer. It's just, I don't, you know, just because we have an agreement doesn't mean we're not gonna rack up tons of legal fees when they sue us because we damaged their boat.
well, I'll talk with you offline.
And it doesn't say in here that it doesn't give us permission to, it gives us permission to, for security and the recreation department to attempt to notify you, and if it's not removed in a timely manner, then security may tow it and or remove it from the water and place it in storage. Okay? I'll tell you, if we did that to anyone's boat for a reason other than risk to the marine environment, they're not gonna, we're gonna have a problem. We're gonna have a huge problem.
Well, from a practical place, we require full payment up front every year, so we don't have bad debt on marina rent. So what the contract gives us the permission to pull their boat for the reasons you cited, so it's in there.
Tom?
Yeah, a couple of things, you know, would it be possible to have people that have wet slip only? And it, like Lori says, she keeps a lock on her trailer, how about a spare key left with administration that identifies a lock in that trailer? And then also, since these are wet slip only boats, rather than giving them a regular dry slip, create an area along the back that's just real narrow, just for trailers only. And it could even be double decker. Stack them so they're not taking up a dry slip.
That's possible.
That's where the advisory could come in and help with that.
So we could change the agreement, but we don't have a revised agreement ready. We could more efficiently store trailers to allow for wet slip only rentals. But we haven't figured that out either. So to reflect the current agreement and move us forward,
Yes.
perhaps we could talk about the rates. And then they can always be amended if we do get a group together to come up with some better suggestions about how to manage it.
Well, right now, your rates are based on wet, dry only, no more wet.
Correct, it's combos and dry slips, no wet slip only.
Unless we go into effect in spring of next year, or,
No, going back in January when the rates go
well, I
up.
mean, when you put your boat in.
Right.
Everyone understand that?
Yep.
Yes, do it.
So,
Okay, so again, motion on the table, move that the board of directors approve the proposed changes to marina rental fees.
I seconded it.
Who seconded it? All in favor? No changes to these,
Lori, are you still against?
I am fully against.
Yes.
Yes, I'm very against.
Okay,
yeah. I'm gonna be against it too,
you are,
only because I think we need to discuss it more. But it did
Yeah,
happen.
there's so much in this agree. I'm reading it right now. And the reasons that we can pull someone's boat from the water is very, very limited.
the item.
Alright, moved by majority. Been approved. Okay, yes, ma'am. Moving on. Item 8G, general GM transition plan.
So
Joanne?
I was asked to put together a transition plan that outlined the material that would be reviewed with the new general manager. While we have our period of overlap. And that plan was provided to the directors in the packet. And I can entertain any questions or note any revisions or additions at this time.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions about the transition plan? Okay. Great. All right, hearing none, thank you, Joanne. There's some comment on that, but, all right, 8H.
Fine.
New ACC member, 8H, gonna go with Daniel Rodriguez.
Yeah, so he's been vetted, he's already on the,
What's his name? I'm sorry.
John Gingrich, he's already been on the committee for a few months.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't want to run, and I guess he's shy, I'm not sure. But, yeah.
He didn't want the commitment. All right, so looks like we want to appoint John to the ACC committee. All in favor?
Unanimous, I think.
Okay, very good.
How many does that give you now, Daniel?
6.
Is
Cool.
Georgina still staying?
Hmm?
Georgina is staying?
She had told me, yeah, otherwise.
Well, she does like ACC, so.
She was elected last year.
Yeah, she was elected, so she has to stay.
Oh, there you
I
go.
thought you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she,
Sure.
And
It wouldn't be the same color.
no, we're.
Okay, Daniel, he's been appointed.
She's great.
Okay, Rob, we're on to 8I,
So,
N-E.
we would ask for approval for 2 new members to any, Georgine Krantz. And Don Gentles. And they have both been vetted, they've been on the NE committee in the past, they were very.
Don has, I know, I think Jodine too.
She has.
Yeah.
They were both very interested in, they were both just real interested in the UNILAC process, and they would like to get back on board.
Nice.
I was gonna say, Don was on the year that, and we spent finding that third party vendor.
Yep.
And so I think now that he's seen how they work, I can see him really being interested in that process.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all in favor of Jodine and Don?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now gonna go to closed session at 10:03 PM.
Motion to move to closed session at
Second.
10:03.
Is someone gonna call me?
I can.